fucking I'm sorry about that. He'll be back. F. Scott Fitzgerald. Yeah, I'm back now, dude. I forgot where we were going with it too. I totally lost my train of thought, so I'm so sorry. Yeah, we're back. Refresh the page. I'll let people roll back in. Yeah, you're definitely treated differently, and you're treated differently such that I wouldn't say you necessarily have the same ability to do things if you're treated differently for the way that you do them, right? Like, I mean, anybody that is a dude could technically act and dress and do things that a woman could do, but like, you know, you're treated differently. And I don't know, like, this is why people transition. It's so difficult because I especially don't want to speak on like transgender issues because I'm not good at them, right? Like, I'm not a good advocate for that stuff. I'm not educated in that stuff. I don't want to upset trans people or the trans community. So like, I have a personally difficult time with this. But I'm sorry. I don't know what the fuck keeps happening here. Am I back? Am I back? Yes? No? Yes? Okay. I don't know what the fuck keeps happening here. My computer's not hot. I don't know. No, you're front. Okay, dude.
Like that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on with the computer right now. It's pissing me off. Let's all just relax and have a nice hug. Yeah, I'm like tempted not to cover this anymore, dude. God is telling me no. He's like, don't do it, dude. Don't do it, dude. Let's take out his internet. Let's fucking make his computer crash. Let's give him an encoder error. Your computer's not hot. It's you, book. You're delving into forbidden topics. We cannot allow you to broadcast further. If it breaks down one more time, I'll stop, and I'll take that as a message from God. So if the stream drops out one more time and I don't come back, that's why, because yeah, that may be a message from God. But I mean, I really want to cover this. He was going to cry if you don't. Yeah, he would be very upset if I don't. So, you know,
it's like, what can you, like, my question typically for people that are like transracial advocates is like, what can you not do as a white person that you could do as a black person or an Asian person?
So
this is so difficult. Like, if I gave you the question of like, what can you do as a woman that you can't do as a man? Like, and like, I don't know. This is such a rough thing. Like, if we apply this same question to trans people, I feel like this gets yikers like really, really quick. And, I will say that I treat a lot of the questions that he's giving here as questions about somebody's identity. He wants to invalidate somebody. Let's be clear about this. So like, Relly's position here is that he wants to invalidate the personal like identification of transracial people. He wants to invalidate them. If somebody on the other side were making these same arguments for somebody that was transgender, we would say the same thing, that you want to invalidate their gender expression. You want to invalidate how they're presenting themselves, right? And then you're giving arguments for why you should invalidate what they're saying about themselves, right? So his thing to invalidate transracial people is to ask them, well, what could you do? What can't you do as a white person that, you know, like, and I feel like if you apply these same things to invalidate trans people, it gets really yikers. This line of questioning would be unacceptable. But we're allowed to do it here because trans race is a meme, right? Like, and I just got to say, like, it feels really bad to me. And that's kind of how this whole conversation goes, because I make parallels to the transgender discussion that I don't think are fair. Like, if this was a conservative person making the same arguments about transgender people, I think we would all be very, very upset with the way they're handling it. So, yeah. Hey, what that question is trying to trap Hugh into saying the N-word. Is that the purpose of it? If so, that's really fucked, I think. And if Hugh makes an argument about the social thing where you're going to feel socially more accepted about doing certain things because of your gender expression or because of your racial expression, I feel like that would be the key to go to, but I'm pretty sure that he doesn't here, and he may miss an opportunity there.
Okay, so I'll try just both those things. For the second point, I'm not sure necessarily why it matters in regards to what you can can't do in terms of self-identity.
Sure. So I'll substantiate that if you would like.
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
Sure. Fair.
Okay.
Go ahead.
One of the reasons why I hold like trans movement in regards to gender pretty close to my heart is because there's very substantial material barriers that block you from being able to do things in your life autonomously, to think the way you want to autonomously, or be treated the way you want to based on your gender identity, either self-identification or presentation or what have you.
And he doesn't think this is the case for race. He doesn't think that race stops you at all. He doesn't think that maybe for an African-American person or somebody who is clocked as black, like they're treated differently than people who are clocked as white, or that certain things are more difficult for them because of that. Similar with Asian people, like it blows me away that he doesn't give that to the other side off the bat. But I guess this is Hugh's position to argue for, and if he fails to, then that's kind of on him
as well. Like, you are treated so radically different on the basis of your gender that I feel like, in regards to, not to say that you aren't necessarily because of your race, but I feel like the only reason why you typically are because of your race is because of whether or not you're passing is one of the main reasons why. But we can get into the whole passing argument with that as well later. But like, even
okay, at least it gives a caveat for that, because I feel like the passing thing is where we should go to, and it is important.
in regard,
Sorry.
okay,
One quick point. I just want to ask a clarifying question.
Mm-hmm.
So you just said in regards to like the barriers that trans people face.
Yep.
So are you suggesting that, like, for someone who is identifying as a quote unquote different race, or at least there is no barrier in regards to race in terms of behavior?
Well, yeah, I don't think that a white person can't do anything that a black, like.
Let me address Kippy real quick. Race and gender, they say, are different concepts. Race is about an inherited trait you obtained from your ancestors. No, it's not. It's not. Like, it's something the white people that were in charge a long time ago made up to separate different people that look different and have different cultures. Like, that's what it's about. And a huge chunk of it is just clockability. It's not about what you get from your ancestors. A lot of it is about how you look. That's a huge dimension of it. I will not allow this discussion about race to be limited simply to what is inherited. I think a huge component of race is how you're identified by other people. And now we could argue that both of those exist simultaneously is important. Your ancestry, how you were raised, the environment you grew up in, all of that. Yeah, we could put that in a box to the side as another important thing. But you need to identify and give me a little bit of ground that how you're presented, how you are clocked as, is another huge component of race. I don't look at somebody who I identify as white and imagine that they had an African-American or black upbringing, or they had African-American ancestry, right? But they very well could have. They very well could have been adopted by a black family in a black neighborhood and grown up black and celebrate, like they could do all these things, and they could have an ancestry in their family now because they were adopted that hits all the marks for you, but it doesn't hit the marks for clockability. And I think that that's an important aspect of this. The aesthetic is an important aspect here. And I want to make sure that we have both of these boxes. I identify, validate, and recognize what you are saying with the culture and with the ancestry and all of that stuff. 110%, yes. But all I ask is that you also give me some ground here in identifying that the way that people perceive you is another huge component of this. I don't look at you and activate my fucking Byakugan and I see your entire past. I don't activate the fucking Rinnegan and I see your entire ancestry. I look at you, I see your skin color and some mixture of the way that you're presenting yourself, the way your face looks, and I make a decision as to what race you are. For a lot of people, that's a huge component of this, right? You can identify somebody's race without knowing anything about them, right? And people do that all the time, the same way that people identify gender all the time, not based on what is in your pants, not based on a sexual organ that I can't see. It's based on other things, right? And that's the same arguments we use in defense of trans people. So, like, this is the difficult thing here, right? Is like, no, I won't allow you to deny me this second thing about the clockability, about the aesthetic. I won't allow that. And if you honestly believe in that, get out of here. If you can't give me ground on this box existing as well as the other box, I'm going to tell you right now, leave the stream, because you're not going to have a good time. And I'm not going to have a good time with you. And the next person I see that is not giving any credence to that clockability factor of things, to that presentation part of things, to the aesthetic of things, I will literally time you out. because I do not want to see it. You are completely derailing the conversation that we're trying to have by denying an entire half of the argument that is incredibly important just offhandedly. So like, I'm just going to give that disclaimer right now. If you're not willing to give that to us, I need you to leave, because you're not going to be a productive member of this discussion. But if you can, and that makes sense to you, and we could both be equal with each other in identifying that both of these are parts of the equation that are important, then you can stay and we can have a good time. But like, I need everybody to be on the same page that that is an important part of this conversation. And if you want to like deny that, you're going to have to leave. You're going to have to leave. I agree that it's multifaceted. I was just trying to illustrate how you can't identify as different race. I don't care. I don't care about that. All I care is that you give me this little bit of ground. That's all I'm asking for you, Kippy. That's all I'm asking from you. That's all I'm asking for you, dude. Let's go ahead and continue.
A white person could listen to hip hop or whatever stereotype. Also, literally, this is a question that I typically have. It's a little bit more like, it's not very fruitful for the conversation, but like, generally speaking, whenever I ask somebody that's like pro-transracial, I would just like typically ask them, what is it that black people do? What makes a black person a black person? And then they're like stuck in this position where they kind of have to be racist. And I don't feel like you have to do that for men or women, right?
I don't think you have to do it for race either,
really?
or for men. I think it's sort of about, yeah.
Really? Okay, so then what do black people do?
It's what they do, whatever the group that identifies as black people do. I don't think.
No, I'm asking you what. Yeah, I'm asking you what the group of black people do. What does the group that identifies as black people? What do they do that me? Let's say I was white. That me as a white person would like to identify with that I couldn't do if I was white. What do they do?
Okay, I'm not sure if you'll disagree with this, but I think the same to hold to gender as well. I don't think men have to follow a certain set of behaviors.
I disagree. Yeah, this is where I disagree. I think a white dude that listens to hip hop or break dances, whatever the fuck you consider to be black, is going to take infinitely less negative repercussions than like me as a man that's, you know, trying to do like, I don't know, wear a dress. Do you disagree with that?
So
sure, but I don't think the scale of harm determines the limit.
That's totally okay. So I will give Relly points here. So there is definitely a scale here. And I would agree that when we compare these two things, the social consequences of one versus the other, of engaging in stereotypically African-American or black or whatever race you're choosing to be, you know, there are less consequences. I would agree. But as Hugh is going to get into here, the scale, I could see how you don't care about the scale very much here. And then Ahrelevant is going to have to argue why it's important that we have this scale of harm thing. So interesting. Hugh is not taking the route that I would personally take in the conversation with Relly here, but I'm interested to see in the direction that they both go, right? I have faith in Hugh as a debater. I have faith in Hugh as an argumentative force. So I'm interested to see where he takes this, even if it isn't the ideal way that I would take it. Let's see.
I think it absolutely does, because if you run it down, let's assume that you are not in any way, shape, or form like. There is no gender stereotypes whatsoever. So there is no conforming to any. Right. I would say at this point, it makes no sense to be trans. Because you can do whatever the fuck. Because at that point, gender doesn't exist.
Wait, well, to be clear, it's not, you can say it makes no sense, but then you wouldn't say someone who identifies as trans invalid. Right?
I would by definition, because it'd be like a tautology. It wouldn't mean anything. So if you would say you identify as a man. I would ask you, what does that mean? You would be like, nothing. I'd be like, okay.
Well, at least he bit the bullet on that.
Do you want me to?
So he's biting the bullet on like, no, I would invalidate a trans person if we lived in a gender abolition world. Like, I totally would. I would say that expression is invalid because it doesn't make any difference. It's tautologically unimportant. That's big, I would say. But at least he bites the bullet on it, I guess. If nobody wants to hold his feet to the fire on that being a not so great thing, then that's totally fine.
Call you by certain pronouns, sure, but like you might as well be saying I identify as bleh, because it means nothing, right? And the only reason why gender matters or any label matters is because there's a.
Wait, so this guy thinks race doesn't exist as a construct? He doesn't think it's consequential. He doesn't think it's consequential for anything that you could possibly conceive of doing. And he's saying if there is anything where it's consequential that you could conceive of doing, where you're impacted because of what you choose to do here or what race you're identifying as, then maybe I could give some credence to this argument. But as of right now, I don't see anything that is like that. And everybody that I've argued with when I present this question falls apart, where they have to say something super racist. So that's kind of where he's going with this Sapdot. Does that mean that Relly believes right now that race means nothing? That is the vibe that I am getting. Yes. And I don't think that is like a good position to have. To be clear, I don't agree with that. I think race is an important thing nowadays. I wish it wasn't. In a similar way, like it would probably be cool if gender didn't matter or if sex didn't matter. But unfortunately, it does. And it does impact the way that people treat you. And it does impact your ability to enjoy or engage in particular activities. Those particular activities are going to vary depending on what culture you're in, right? In certain cultures, it may be that it's more acceptable for white-skinned people to do something than it is black-skinned people to do something. Like I said about African-American people or black people in going to a country club or something. You go to a country club that wants to keep everybody white, and it has this whole racist fucking history that goes back to like hiring black people to go on stage and do funny things and treating them awfully and racist and whatever. Like if that's the case and you're a black person that goes in there, like you are most certainly going to be treated differently. And though you could do that thing, you're treated differently and you are scorned the same way that a man wearing or presenting as a female while having all these other, identifying features of a man is treated differently, right? So like, or engaging in feminine behaviors is treated differently because they're clocked as a man, right? So, I don't agree with Relly here at all. No, I think race is an important component in all sorts of activities, but it's up to Hugh to choose to go down that rabbit hole or not. And Hugh seems to be very reluctant to go down that rabbit hole at all. But the problem is, and Hugh needs to realize this stylistically about Relly is unrelenting in questions. You cannot hand wave questions that Relly is going to give to you. You are not going to be able to say that at a meta level, that question doesn't matter for X reason or Y reason. You're going to have to contend with that question directly, or he will feel like you're not answering it. He will continue to push on it, and he will give no ground in any direction beyond what he is asking. I've said before that I think that for Ahrelevant, he has this thing where like he has limited range of motion and where he's able to go in a conversation in terms of next steps. And I think this is demonstrated here perfectly. When he asks a question, he needs particular answers to that question, or he cannot move forward. If you are not able to give a suitable response to a question that he is asking, he is not necessarily flexible enough to give up on that question entirely and go somewhere else. And even if he does, temporarily, we will find ourselves returning to the point where he asked the same question he had asked before. And yet again, we're into this situation where you either give one or another set of predetermined answers, otherwise it's no good. You have to respond to that question. Choosing not to respond to that question is not an option when you're talking to Ahrelevant. And this is something I've noticed in a lot of conversations with them. Not to say that's bad or good. It could be helpful if you really want to be a stickler on people answering questions that you find important, or if you really want to stay on topic. And on topic, in your opinion, means giving predetermined answers to predetermined questions. But I do feel like not having that flexibility is something I identify as a weakness in an interlocutor. And I would prefer somebody who is more flexible. And so that may be a stylistic thing that I would comment on for Relly, though it's not necessarily bad or good, I would say. It's just a matter of being flexible or inflexible.
We treat them a specific way,
Okay.
correct?
Sure. So how about I give an example and you tell me how I can treat these two people differently?
Correct. Okay.
Okay, sure. So let's say we have two people. So they look the same. They're both white passing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now one person has like black ancestry. So so he's biologically has two black parents. But that other person's adopted by two black parents. But other than that, they live in the same exact household, same neighborhood, in the same culture, right? Let's say you're surrounded by
hold on.
black people.
So when we were talking about boxes earlier, remember when I was talking with that one chatter about all of the things in terms of ancestry and in terms of like culture and stuff, we're talking about that box right now. Okay, so let's assume that Noah's box, Booksmarts' box of the racial identification is different for these two people. One is identified as white, one is identified as black. However, the box that contains all of the way that they were raised in their entire history essentially is the same, right? And you could say, well, their ancestry is different because actually the white kid that was born has an ancestry that goes back with white people. He's not at all related. Like, you could say that, but I'm not a genetic person that says that like genetics determines like some immutable quality about the race or anything. In much the same way, I don't say that the genetics like necessarily determines your gender. Like I don't agree with that. But you know, we could disagree there, and then this won't be analogous for you. And I could understand that. That's fine. Although I think you're being obtuse at that point, but that's just my opinion. So we're creating a scenario where the box that we were talking about before, with all of the way you were raised and your culture and whatever, is identical. However, the presentation, your skin color, is different here.
I didn't quite keep up with the example. There's a person with black history or black ancestry, but they're raised by also black parents.
Yeah. So like the idea is, let's say so
we just get a random white passing full black person. Is what you're saying?
So let's say we have a white passing black person, and then just a regular white person, but let's say they look the same.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I think that changed from the way he said it to like the way Relly explained it, and now where we're going with it, in a very key way. But
so society will see him as the same.
Man, this fucking player, I can't like rewind with the keys
raised
on the
by
keyboard.
Also black parents.
Yeah. So like the idea is, let's say so
we just get a random white.
Okay, so two black parents. Here we go. So you actually can't disagree with the box thing. Now you're fucking hooked into it because two black parents had a white kid just by a fluke of God. They had a kid that is totally white passing. Okay, but their ancestry. The important part for you frenetic pieces of shit. Their ancestry is there. Their genetics are there. They are genetically black, but they are not presenting as black. They do not pass as black. And they were raised in a black household with black cultural things, yada, yada.
Passing full black person is what you're saying?
So let's say we have a white passing black person, and then just a regular white person, but let's say they look the same.
Yep.
So society will see them as the same, but they have the same heritage. Well, it's not the same heritage. Sorry, they have the same like history in terms of how they were raised, how they were treated.
I don't think they do. I already don't think that they do. Because compared to a white person,
I said they look the same. So I said they look the same.
I know, but I think you have to take in the familial situation as well. I've had this conversation extensively with my chat, and when we're talking about what makes somebody white and what makes somebody black, it's twofold. One is your ability to pass inside of the environment, because if you pass, everyone's going to treat you that way, versus your like familial, how your family has been treated throughout their bloodline and like what have you. Because like for instance, like, you know,
okay, so we have different definitions of black. So his thing with black is there are two components to it. There is the passing part, how people identify you on the street. You know, they clock you as being black. That's the clock thing. I keep using that. I know it's like a transgender term, but I like the clock thing. I like the clock thing. So it's the passing, the clockability aspect. The other aspect is the history of your ancestors' oppression or the way that they were treated. I'm not sure that's important. I'm really not sure that's important. It's only important insofar as how the culture is treating you today, right? Because by this argument, let's assume that we live in the world that Relly is talking about where race doesn't matter. It's basically like gender abolition land where the race has no impact on anything. Who cares if your ancestry was that? If it has no bearing on the way that people are treating you today, then and it had no bearing on the way that you're raised, it's just a historical fact, like, then how does that have any impact on you? If we solved racism, if I Thanos snap a solution to racism and nobody recognizes it or cares about it, it's not a distinguishing feature that anybody recognizes. What would it matter if there was history of discrimination in the past if it's not occurring in the present? I don't understand this. I don't think it connects very well with what he was saying earlier, but we'll see if Hugh points that out or not.
Let's say I might pass as like white or whatever, right? Or I might pass as X, Y, Z. I might pass as Asian, whatever, right? I might pass as X, Y, and Z. However, my parents received a lot of discrimination on the basis of the way that they did, and that discrimination then informs the way that I live my life, whether I want it to or not.
Isn't this kind of tautological? You're basically saying black people are treated like black people.
What the fuck? Sam, what is this?
Thank you, Dylan. That's probably going to be super loud for you guys because I had to turn this up like all the way because Relly's stream is incredibly quiet for some reason. And regarding UPCP, this is the way that have you ever seen a review that I do? This is what we do. We pause every 2 seconds. I'm not Relly. Don't make fun of me for fucking pause. Turn my roast meter up. Turn it up, Mr. Hen. Put my roast meter up because I'm gonna start roasting people. Just realize I'm not in a mood where I have a ton of patience for you guys. Do not comment on how often I am pausing the video. Do not comment on how often I am giving my input on it because that is the entire purpose of this stream. I am not a React Andy who is sitting here holding your hand and watching the same content with you and reacting, oh, that's crazy. Oh, this is so funny. Wow, look at that. That's cool. This is not the way we do it here. This is not a popcorn eating flick thing where we're just watching the same thing at the same time. We're not here to enjoy this content. We are here to like understand the arguments of what is going on here and then what is my take on it? What is my review of it? What is going on with it? What is my interpretation of it? That's what we're here for. So if you're commenting on the frequency of pausing or you're commenting on the frequency of like commentary, like you're missing out on the point of the entire thing. I'm not a React Andy. I am not here to just like, wow, oh, wow, that's cool. Wow, what the fuck? I'm here to give commentary on this, right? And that requires pausing. And I need to make sure that we don't lose the thread of what's going on. We don't lose the thread of what people are talking about. We don't lose the thread of like step by step. What are they saying? What is the move that's being made? How important is that? What do I think about that? It's like we're playing chess with 3 different boards. We have Ahrelevant's board, we have Hugh's board, and we have my board. And every time anybody makes a move, I need to change the pieces on all 3 boards. And I would say, in my mind, there's 4 boards because I have the board of you, the chat, that I'm also trying to keep track of. So every time we make a move, I have to move the pieces on every board. And that requires pausing, unfortunately. I need to handle how the audience is interpreting things. I need to handle how Relly's points are making sense with the rest of his arguments. I need to make sense of what is Hugh saying in relevance to his arguments. And then I need to like make sense of what are my positions and how do those fit into literally all 3 of these other boards, right? So it is going to take a lot of pausing, and that is a part of this. So no, if you want to watch this, go watch it on your own. That's not what people are here for. They're not here to watch a debate. They're here to watch me review the debate. They're here to watch my analysis of that debate. They're here for me to break it down and to give my input on it. They're not here to watch this video. That is the difference between me and React Andy people. I would argue that with a lot of React Andy people, you really don't get a ton more than you would just watching the video on your own. You are there to watch it with a friend, but that is not the experience here. You are not here to watch this with a friend. You are here to hear me out on my analysis and my thoughts on what's going on the screen.
A lot of discrimination on the basis of the way that they did, and that discrimination then informs the way that I live my life, whether I want it to or not.
Isn't this kind of tautological? You're basically saying black people are treated like black people?
Wait, how are you getting there?
Yeah, I would have explained that a little bit more, Hugh, unless the plan was to get him to be confused and then to explain it to him. I would have given more information there because it's not very clear to everybody watching what you mean.
Well, yeah,
no.
Go ahead.
Well, in terms of like their family history, right? Like, if you don't share that history, the history of black people, you're not black.
No, I never said that. No, I never said that you're not black.
Oh, sorry.
But what I'm saying, that's a component of being black.
Yeah, but it's only one of 2 components. You only named clockability and then the historical aspect of it. And it doesn't seem, based on the way that you're currently responding to the example he's putting forward with these 2 kids, that you even care very much about box number 1 with the passability thing. And you're giving a lot of weight to the historical thing. So I think he's right in focusing on this historical aspect because it's what's important for Hugh to diffuse here. Hugh needs to diffuse box number 2, the historical aspect of things, or reconcile it with how he thinks you should be treating transracial people. So for Hugh, I think this box number 2 is something he's going to focus on because it's an area of contention. The difference between me and Hugh is I generally, if I want to make progress in an argument, I want to focus on the things that we agree about, the things we have consensus about. I think they both have consensus on box number 1, the clockability thing, how you look. But he was going to focus on box number 2 because it's a debate and he wants to argue. And so the contention is on that second part, the ancestry part. So that's what he's going to focus on here, and that's what he's giving pushback on.
Like, I wouldn't say that, like, I wouldn't discredit that. If somebody's white passing, but their entire family is black, I would say that, yeah, they're black. Because
so he's weighted these two things very differently from each other. He's weighted box number 2 much more than box number 1. So box number 2, this historical thing, is far more important to Ahrelevant than how you look or how you pass. But that's missing out on the fact that discrimination doesn't occur at the historical level. Discrimination occurs at the level of people you meet every day who are treating you differently. And I don't think he's giving any weight to that because he doesn't believe that that's the case in the real world. And I would say that most people that I would ask would agree that races are treated differently nowadays. So I think that's a contention that Hugh really needs to address here.
they have that also that measure of that. But I would not disagree that it's like a balancing act. And where you draw the exact line is completely ambiguous.
So if I'm do I need just one of these components to be black?
No, I mean, I feel like it's arbitrary, but you could deal with it.
He was totally correct. You do only need one of these components to be black, because Relly just said that if the person doesn't pass as black, but they have all the historical things, he would still validate their expression or their self-identification as being black, purely because of the historical aspect of things. So when Ahrelevant is posing the idea that to be black means to have two things, to pass as being black and to have a history or an ancestry of blackness, that's not true, because we're finding out here that Ahrelevant is saying, oh, of course I would still identify you as black if you didn't pass as black, because you still have all the ancestry. Well, then you don't have a two-part definition of being black. And this is what he was getting at when he mentioned that tautological comment. What he should have said was, you're giving me a two-part definition, but you're telling me part 1 has no bearing on whether or not you define something as the word. That part 1, the passing, the clockability, the way your skin looks, has no impact on this, because when we presented a scenario where the skin color was different but the history was the same, you still validated that identity. So you don't have a two-part definition here, and that's important to remember. Relly doesn't really have a two-part definition here. He only has a one-part definition. He's only looking at the history, because the presentation could be anything and he still validates their identity as being black.
Only one of them, yeah.
Okay, so if I just look,
let me rewind a little bit here.
Heritage, no black.
I mean that it's like a balancing act, and where you draw the exact line is completely ambiguous.
Okay.
Gerari in the chat is saying, I don't like the history thing. You could say the same thing about gender and how women have a specific history, but we don't tell trans women that they aren't women because of the lack of history. Yes. TERFs do. TERFs will say that women that didn't grow up being women and didn't undergo the things that women underwent should not be able to identify as women, right? That's one of their arguments that they pose, which is, again, why I have problems with the parallels here. I have problems when we use those same bad arguments to then make these things about race, because I'm not sure about that. Like, you could say that they're different, and I think that's as far as I would go. They're different experiences. To grow up as a woman and to be identified as a woman by everybody around you your entire life is, by definition, a different experience than transitioning later on in life and then living as a woman. And I know that may seem like cringe. You guys may be upset at that, but that is a fact. Like, they are different. Is one more valid than the other? No, I don't think that at all. Should one mean that you're more of a woman than the other? No, I don't think that at all. But they are different. They are different. And how you reconcile those differences, or what you think those differences are, that's where the debate comes in. That's where you debate about things, right? What are the consequences of this difference, if any? And so I think we need to talk about that a little more here. I'm interested to see where this ends up going.
So do I need just one of these components to be black?
No, I mean, I feel like it's arbitrary, but you could deal with only one of them, yeah.
Okay, so it's not a two-part definition. Good on Hugh to recognize that.
Okay, so if I just look black, but I have no black heritage, no black family whatsoever, I'm still black.
That's clever of Hugh. So we have two parts to this definition, and he asked very broadly, and I didn't catch that in the very beginning. He asked very broadly, so do I only need one of these things to then meet your definition? And Relly, thinking we're talking about the second part of that definition, the ancestry and whatever, agrees, says yes. And then Hugh goes, okay, I know you're thinking about number 2, but if only number 1 exists, then can we say the same thing?
Not necessarily. It depends. Like I would say.
Okay. So one is definitely more important to Relly than the other.
Absolutely depends on like the environment or what have you.
But that's box number 2. That has nothing to do with the presentation thing, the passing is black thing, which is explicitly what you said for your part 1 of the definition.
It's like, let's say you look black, but nobody treats you as though you're black because everybody knows that your like family isn't black and that you're not actually like black genetically. Then you wouldn't really be treated as though you're black. However,
so it's not about whether you look black, it's whether you're treated as black. Maybe that is a necessary like amendment that we make to his thing here, that it's not really if you look black, it's if you're treated black, which I feel like are very, very different things, to the point where we may as well not mention whether or not somebody looks black at all in part 1 of our definition. My advice to Relly would be to edit your definition to be number 1, if they are treated as black, whatever that means, and number 2, they have the ancestry of being black. Do not include anything about whether they pass as black, because this passes black thing has to do with how they look. It doesn't have to do with how people treat them, really. It has to do with how they look. So I think we should be more specific there to get out of that area.
Let's assume a scenario where you're like an orphan or what have you, right? And you pass as black. I would say, yeah, in effect, you are black. There's no real, like, massive, meaningful difference, I would say, between you and a black person who's an orphan.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So you're cutting out. Run it again. Run it again. You cut out.
Sorry. So, is it okay if I run parallels like trans people? Because I feel like there's a lot of comparisons here.
Sure, you can find parallels if you want to. But my thing is primarily based on the treatment. Like, my thing is the actual, like, if you are a full white person and you say, I want to identify as a black person, right? Or what have you, I don't think you have the same grounds as like a trans person when it comes to gender. I don't think you do because of the difference in treatment.
Okay, so with Dolezal, right?
Sure.
She passed as black, okay? And I think she passed as no one's... Well, no. So, okay, so the reason I say that, no one ever questioned her being black until they realized she had white hair.
Sure.
Okay, it's like, so despite leading a chapter...
Yeah, like, let's be really, really clear here. You can't take that away from her, even if Relly really wants to, because it would help his argument here. You can't take that away from her. She passes as black. She passed as black for a long time before this whole thing came out about her being trans race, right? Like, that was the whole thing behind there being a huge public outcry about this lady, was that she came out with, like, I used to be this way, and I chose to live a life as this other thing.
The NAACP, it's like, we can disagree. We can look at her now and try to like really clock her, but clearly no one called her out for being white until way later.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Okay, so wait, under what so why the hell would we ever say, oh, she can't do that? Like, so is it causing harm? Is it like a problem? Is it not about, like, what's the issue?
So the only reason why I would say is just like, why? There doesn't seem to be a good reason. Like, why?
Why does there need to be a reason?
I think there has to be a reason. Well, yeah, sure. Because
clearly no one called her out for being white until way later.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Okay, so wait, under what so why the hell would we ever say, oh, she can't do that? Like, so is it causing harm? Is it like a problem? Is it not about, like, what's the issue?
So the only reason why I would say is just like, why? There doesn't seem to be a good reason.
This is super important. So Hugh asks, why would we invalidate her expression? Why wouldn't we allow her to identify as this thing? What is the problem there? And Relly hits him back with No, my question to you is why? Why would we want to treat her like that? This is where I start to have a problem with Relly's engagement in this conversation, is I don't think this is very fair to Hugh here. Hugh asked you a specific question. Hugh gave you answers on your specific question, but you're going to hit him with the no you here by asking him the exact same thing back. Like, I don't know if this is a fair way of handling the conversation. It's the same question. It is the same question, but Hugh asked it first, and I feel like we're getting out of it by, like, just Uno reversing.
Who
are we talking about? Didn't really catch the name. Well, good thing it's in the title.
Like, why?
Why does there need to be a reason?
I think there has to be a reason. Well, yeah, sure. Because I don't think that I don't have to respect somebody's XYZ if there is no good reason.
Again, the parallels that we can make to the transgender discussion, like, well, why should I have the, I mean, I could just not do it. If I don't see any compelling reason to treat you like a woman when you were raised as a man, then, why do I got to treat you as a woman? Like, this is rough for me. This is kind of rough for me. I don't know.
Like, she can do all of the shit that she did as a white person, and in fact probably be better off for it than if they were a black person. So like, I don't.
Why is she better off for it though? This is like contrary to the narrative you're trying to spin with there's no difference between doing things as a white person or as a black person. But I know that you know better than that, which is why you're saying, like, if anything, she would be better off. Why would she be better off doing all those things as a white person? Why is that? Why do you think that is? Right? Like, you know this, like you have an understanding of these race relations. So I feel like you should know better than the way that you're engaging with this at some points here.
I don't understand why. Right, and the disconnect with like trans people, in my opinion, is like trans people typically cannot do whatever they want to do. Now, if we lived in a world where in which like people treated you exactly the same or pretty similar to the same when on the basis of your gender, I wouldn't give a fuck about like people's gender identity almost at all.
But thank you for that. Who what is that? What is that an alert for? Anybody know what that's an alert for? I completely missed it. What is this? Oh, subscriptions. Okay. I don't know what those subscriptions are about. Is that like a YouTube thing? I have no idea. There is no exclamation point video. I had to download it because fucking Twitch doesn't even load shit. This is Relly versus Mungus. Where was I? Fuck, that distracted me.
Right, and the disconnect with like trans people, in my opinion, is like trans people typically cannot do whatever they want to do. Now, if we lived in a world where in which like people treated you exactly the same or pretty similar to the same when on the basis of your gender, I wouldn't give a fuck about like people's gender identity.
But that's not how it exists for race at the moment. People don't treat you exactly the same engaging in particular activities between the different races. That's not true.
Yeah, almost at all.
Enjoy your
Yeah, so, okay, I actually could give you examples of good reasons.
Okay.
Although this is mostly focused, and it's not really a study. I looked up papers on it, but I couldn't really find any good study on it.
Okay.
In regards to transracial adoptions.
Yep.
So it's pretty well documented the history or the problems these kids face.
Yep.
So let's say, you're an Asian kid raised in a white household. You suffer, oftentimes when they start becoming a teenager, they get these really weird, I won't call dysphoria because that seems kind of weird to call it that.
Sure.
But they experience lots of issues with their identity.
Mm-hmm.
And so like because they always identified with their parents, but now like they're realizing, oh shit, wait, I'm different. So if those people, if that Asian kid wanted to identify as white, it seems like they have really good reason to. Like, what's the issue there? Like,
so
why would you? Is there any reason to not respect it?
Right. So I think in that circumstance, like I would again, like what does that solve?
But you're not answering his questions. You're not being fair
so
here.
I think in that circumstance, like
what's the issue there?
What is the issue there?
So why would you? Is there any reason to not respect it?
Is there any reason not to respect that decision?
Right. So I think in that circumstance, like I would again, like what does that solve?
This is where he's not being fair. So Hugh is being very fair in responding to the questions that he's being given, and I don't feel like Ahrelevant is being equally fair in responding to the questions that Hugh is giving. And Relly is being an obstacle in this conversation, a way that he really doesn't need to be. If Relly is convinced and very confident that these trans race people always fall apart when he asks questions, or always falls apart when they have these arguments, or their position doesn't make sense, why is there a problem with engaging in Hugh's line of questioning here, which he's not doing? This is the second time in a row that he's hit Hugh's question with another question rather than actually answer what's going on here. Now, Hugh did this at the very, very beginning, but then they actually got to some answers. So let's hope that that's similar for Relly here, where he's dodged on both of these, but we're going to get a response after this. Hopefully, I hope.
Wait, what do you mean solve?
What does it solve? What is that trying to? Why? Because because like you're stating that the good reason is because this individual feels disenfranchised in regards to like not disenfranchised, but like there's a disconnect with like their parents and them, correct?
So well, for example, let's say someone kept calling out and saying, "Hey, I don't care what you say. You're an Asian. Shut the fuck up." If someone kept doing that over and over, like, dude, you have no ground to say, "Get the fuck away from me. I'm white. Just respect that and leave me alone."
No, you could do. Okay, so what do you mean you don't have grounds for it? Because when we're talking about not having grounds, we're talking about. So let's rephrase it. Do I think it would be right for that individual to say so? Not necessarily, because like in my opinion, that's them just ignoring what I would consider to be the reality of their ethnicity.
Oh, is Hugh going to make a parallel to trans race or to transgender people here? Where you're just denying your biological truth. Like, let's see where Hugh goes from here.
Like, what if let's assume every single individual like decides to say, you know what, I'm not Asian anymore. It's not like Asian people no longer exist. Like, or right?
What do you mean what do you mean the reality of it?
Well, so the reality, right. So the reality is that certain people look like X. I'm assuming we're talking about in regards to looks.
Sure.
Okay, so in reality, these certain people look like X. So one of my arguments against like people just saying like I identify as X or Y or Z, I feel like you ignore the material conditions of these people to be able to that like essentially brought them to that place in the first place. So like,
but I just don't see why. So okay, so I'm gonna keep bringing it back, and I'm so sorry about this. I just don't see why it matters. For example, regardless of how I look, right? Let's say I don't pass as whatever I identify.
Yep.
Why did that determine my identification? So why does societal treatment determine identification?
Because I would consider that race as a social construct is built off of those things. If you can deny the aspect of race and say you want to abolish race.
Yeah, but you don't nearly care about that as much as you care about the historic part, which we've already kind of established. So I don't think it's good to switch back when it's convenient for you here, Relly.
I'm down with that. However,
so in your community, you can be. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so however, I think that denying it and saying that it doesn't exist in X, Y, or Z capacity, or like what have you, or the underlying things that people use it, just seeks to, in my opinion, make it more confusing to deal with.
The same way that having people that are biologically men identify as women and dress as women makes things confusing. Like, I can't help but make the parallels to the transgender thing because a lot of these arguments fall flat or are disallowed when we're talking about transgender stuff. And if I'm really going to give Relly all this ground or you believe in everything that Relly is saying here, I would be really interested in how you reconcile that with your beliefs about trans people. Because unless you're making exceptions to your rules for trans people, like, I don't see how these things can like coexist at the same time.
The systemic issues that certain races of people face, really.
Or like the systemic issues that men or women face. Like, I don't know. He's not making any convincing arguments here.
So you're saying that the idea of like someone identifying as a race other than
it's just like you can't. It's like the same thinking. So a lot of the process that people like TERFs, for instance, go through when it comes to trans people is like, why can't we? Because this is actually an argument for you. Why don't trans people? Why don't trans people just? Why do trans people feel a need to have an identity at all, a gender identity? Why don't they just all become non-binary or just not identify with any gender?
Mm-hmm.
That's my question for you, genuinely.
Well, like why don't they?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. That's just saying why not. Like, odds are I use something, I have a preference, and it's a valid preference. I don't need a reason to have a preference. I don't need a reason to, let's say, prefer chocolate.
Interesting. So that's the direction he's going to go. That all of this could be deduced down to preferences, and that they have a preference to be identified or to present as one way versus the other. And ultimately this comes down to preferences. That's how he's going to, that's what he's going to put forward here. An interesting move from him here. 'Cause it's not at all what I would predict that he would do. Huh. Okay, let's see where this goes then.
So like this is the disconnect in my opinion. When people talk about this, when I say like you don't need a reason to be trans or what have you, I'm talking about it in the context of the way that we live our life right now, right? I think that you do need a reason to do whatever the fuck you want to do in general, not for me to know, but for you to know and the reasons why it happens, right? And what have you.
Okay, well that's an important principle to have. So you need to have a reason that you know for every decision that you make. Okay. I'm not saying I disagree necessarily, but this is interesting. I've never heard this like put forward as an argument. You need to have a reason for every decision that you know, even if I don't know it. Okay, let's see. They're both surprising me with things that they're doing now, which I guess is better than disappointing. So I guess we'll see where this goes. I don't know how these two Beyblades are going to like fight each other, or these two tops are going to like fight each other. I have no idea like what the interaction between these two things is going to be. They've both pulled out positions that haven't really occurred in the conversation yet. Hugh with the preferences card, and Relly with the you need to have a reason for every action that you make. Even if I don't know it, you should know it. Let's see where this goes.
So in a world, I guess I would propose, I'll come back to the previous question because I don't feel like it was properly answered, but
Sure.
in a world where in which there was no...
Zap.exe in the chat says, I mean, gender dysphoria is like a kind of very, very intense preference. No. Let's be more specific here, Zap. It's not that that is a preference. That is a reason in the framework that we have here. Hugh is saying these things could be a preference irrespective of reasons. And Relly is saying if you have a preference, there ought to be a reason for this preference, and you should know and be well aware of what that reason is. So in that case, to slot in what you're mentioning here with dysphoria, the dysphoria is not a preference. The dysphoria is a reason to have a preference, right? Because it would be preferable to not experience dysphoria compared to experiencing it by being a gender or being a race that, or a gender, I guess in this case, that you don't want to be, right?
No gender stereotypes whatsoever, and gender did not exist. Why would you be trans?
As a preference.
Or how could you, I would ask, how could you be trans?
Okay.
So I guess trans in specific, because you were grown up one thing and you decided to be another thing. Well, that's difficult. How is Hugh going to deal with this?
So what you just said there. So you said gender stereotypes don't exist.
There is no gender. There is no gender. There is nothing associated with the genders whatsoever. They're completely and totally vacuous and meaningless.
Why, though, asks, why can't a preference be a reason in and of itself? You'd have to bring that up with Relly. I don't expect everybody to have reasons for preferences. To be quite honest with you, I don't even expect people to have reasons for arguments they put forward in a debate, because I just don't have a very high bar in my brain for the way that normal people engage with ideas or thoughts. I think that a lot of people, myself included, with most topics, kind of just do. We kind of just do things. I don't think we're reasoning through a lot of the things that we choose to do day to day. Or if we are, it's at a subconscious or unconscious level. So I'm in your camp. I think preferences can exist independent of like known reasons for those preferences. I think a preference can exist for a preference's sake, but Relly is not comfortable with that. And Relly has created a rule for the universe that every decision should have reasons known to the person making the decision. So Relly has created an artificial rule here for the way that things ought to work. And he was going to have to either choose to fit in with that or not be able to convince Relly here.
Why would you be trans?
Sure. Well, it depends on how you feel about gender. If you think gender is purely socially constructed, then there is no reason. Which, what do I for race? If you're what?
Dragon Slayer says, couldn't we just say the reason for a preference is that it feels good? We technically could. We'll see if Hugh takes that position.
Why would you be trans?
Sure. Well, it depends on how you feel about gender. If you think gender is purely socially constructed, then there is no reason. Which, what do I for race? If there was no ideas of race, like if no one ever thought about race, I actually would agree with you. Race completely wouldn't exist. Race is a pure social construct. Well, at least at the very least, though, with my conception of gender, there is some inherentness to it, some process inside that manifests because of stereotypes and culture and all that stuff into gender. I don't know if you would say there's an internal gender, but there is something. So I don't know how that would present in a world of no stereotypes.
What do you mean?
I think that something would still be there.
So he was appealing to some like amorphous thing that might exist in people that alongside the catalyst of social expectations and stereotypes comes out and expresses itself in terms of a gender. And he's saying that this thing that he can't explain that exists within a person that pushes them in one direction or another, depending on those societal factors, he's not sure how that thing inside of the person would behave if absent those pressures or absent those stereotypes. So he's appealing to something that he doesn't know exists here. So I'm not sure if this is like super solid ground unless he explains it better. And if Relly calls him out on this, we could give a lot of pushback here.
What do you mean?
So like for example, let's say we live in a world, right, where like let's say we have no history of trans people, so we never ever heard of a trans person before, right?
Yeah.
And that we can still conceive of like a trans person can so someone can still have.
So David S. in the chat says, but if the bar for a something being a reason is too low, it kind of becomes useless or meaningless, no? Sure, but it's useless or meaningless to you. But if it's useless or meaningless to you, then why then did you choose to remove that person's identity or invalidate it from them, right? So let's assume that we live in the perfect universe that Ahrelevant has constructed where we have abolished gender. If I chose to identify as a man, like, sure, you could say that my choice is meaningless. Sure, and I could agree with you in this hypothetical, maybe. Then why would you invalidate my decision? Would it be equally meaningless for you to invalidate my decision about my gender, since my decision about my gender is by itself meaningless? Like, then your decision to counter that thing seems to also be meaningless or fruitless. So, you know, that's where I would go with that. But then Relly would say, well, the reason that I'm criticizing it is because you don't have a reason to do that thing. And if I said that my reason was because it feels better for me to identify as this thing, or because I want to, I wonder if that would be a good enough reason. But Hugh hasn't put forward that as like a response quite yet.
Gender dysphoria or something. Someone can still identify as a different gender. And why? So that wouldn't make sense if the society believes in a strict gender binary. If they believe like sex and gender are the same thing, but again, we historically thought that, but people were still going against it naturally. So if it's purely social, then we would assume that wouldn't have happened.
Wait. Oh, okay. I see where he's going now. So, okay. So that's what he that's where he's getting at with the something.
Why would we assume that wouldn't have happened?
So again, if people are taught that your sex is your gender 100%.
Yep.
And they've never ever heard of something else. So then you think that contradicts that.
Then why do they choose to create gender and identify as something different?
Right. Now how could someone feel that
they're the other
different
sex
gender unless there is some internal thing guiding to that?
Because we still had these social things, Hugh. That's the thing, is we still had social expectations and social stereotypes and things surrounding both of the genders, even back when sex was very, very, very rooted to gender. I think that would be the proper response here.
That would be coming from some source.
Well, no, it's because there is two separate phenomenons at play. It's the same. So I feel like I'm running over the same arguments that I have with a lot of conservatives. You could call it what you want. We could call it manif if you want. But there's a phenomena that is attached to sex arbitrarily, which is if you are born in X sex, you do Y thing, otherwise you are scrutinized. And it is completely arbitrary. And that is exactly what people did with gender. They were like, hey, there is, well, I mean, gender was used at one point for that, but like let's assume before there was even a word for it, right? Like what your example gave, there wasn't a word for it. Let's just assume sex. They go, hey, sex, that exists, and then they're like, well, there's this weird social situation that's going on in collaboration with sex. Let's create a word for that. Like I don't know what you mean. It's still socially constructed. It just didn't have a word for it.
Yeah. So a lot of questions. Do you think like people in the future, if there was no gender, would have body dysmorphia, for example? It's like
no, I imagine they certainly would. I imagine body dysmorphia would probably still happen. It just wouldn't be in line with gender. It would just be simply, I want to be like X, or I envision myself as X, and it causes me massive mental detriment, or what have you. But it would have nothing to do with gender.
I have trouble conceiving of an idea where like society would have absolutely no gender stereotypes. Because I think people who do relative quote unquote similar things will end up conglomerating into some kind of group anyway. I don't think gender.
Well, now you're arguing with like the validity of the entire hypothetical, right? And I'm not sure if that's helpful to say, well, I can't even imagine a world where we don't have this. Well, then work your imagination harder, buddy, because we're meant to accept that this is a hypothetical and then work within that hypothetical world. But now you're going to challenge the validity of the entire hypothetical world that Relly has constructed here.
I think gender now is socially enforced, but I think the way it developed was also probably somewhat natural, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so again, even if we don't, I think we would just end up getting new gender things instead of that may not be relevant to the past conceptions of gender. Or maybe to get more, but I don't know if you ever get to zero.
Yeah, but this is like a whole separate discussion on like how likely it is that we ever hit gender abolition in the way that Relly is describing here.
Sure. So we may not ever get zero or what have you, but like this may be on the same level of like talking about like what about otherkin? How do you treat otherkin? How do you treat otherkin? I'm actually curious.
So what do you mean? I treat
sorry. Like, yeah. Do you know what otherkin is?
Well, no, I know otherkin. Yeah, like what they identify as like different species.
Yeah. Well, how do you treat the? Do you think that those people are just as valid as like trans people when it comes to gender?
Is it just as valid?
Yeah.
Oh, this is tough for Hugh here. We could create a spectrum of validity on which we place like gender pretty high so that we match with all the woke points and we include trans people and we do all the good things we're supposed to do. We could put trans people really high on the validity tier list. We could put trans race lower than that. And then we could put otherkin lower than that even still, right? So we could create a spectrum of validity and say that it is still valid. I would validate these people's beliefs, but I think it deserves less validity than these other things. Or we could try something like that. I don't know how he's going to respond to this.
I feel like the transgender thing is more valid only because I believe in there's something here.
Okay, so he does go into a spectrum thing, more valid.
Right? But honestly,
wait, why?
Logically speaking, no. So yeah, but logically speaking, like so that
because the thing is, if he does do that and then he gives a metric for the validity, like I think it's more valid because of X and Y and Z, then perhaps some of that X or some of that Y or some of that Z are points that Relly is also considering when he's saying that I give more, like when Relly is talking about whether or not I play into whatever somebody is claiming that they are, it's based on these societal things, right? Can you do things that are different? Are you discriminated against? Does it make it harder to do? These are his metrics for like assigning validity to these different categories and playing along with how people want to identify. And so if they could reconcile some of these metrics for validity and they can realize what are the different things we're looking for to assess validity here, and then they can agree or disagree on those individual things, maybe that's a way to progress the conversation forward here.
Intuitively, I think it's not the same, but logically, I think it is probably somewhat comparable.
Right, so I compare otherkin to like...
That's a fair answer. So logically, yeah, what you put forward so far, you are kind of stuck there. Even if at a knee-jerk feel level, you want to create some kind of distinction to allow for these other two things that you feel are more valid than this third thing.
Being a fan of something is how I'd say it. It's like, it's in that you feel a connection with this given like label or identity or what have you. And the same way, like, I would say that like me being a Mets fan or something like that could potentially get to like that point where
Okay, so rather than talking about the individual things they use to determine the metric, he's going to add another item onto that spectrum to give you a better idea of like, where are we on this validity scale? Well, if I want to give you another landmarker so we know how far on that validity spectrum we are, I think this is hovering real close to like being a fan of something in terms of like a valid or important thing that you're identifying as.
have like an obsession.
I think we can make a distinction between being a fan of something to identifying as that thing. I think there's a distinction there.
Identifying as a fan is a form of identity.
Oh, no. What I mean is like, so being a fan of something versus identifying as that thing. So like saying I'm a fan of like basketball versus I am basketball.
I mean, what is the meaningful distinction there?
Oh, no. Oh, are we really one-to-one comparing them? Because we probably shouldn't do that. That doesn't make any sense. They're not the same. Like other can believe that they are this other thing. They're not like, I really like wolves. Like they think that spiritually at some level they are this other thing. They have a spiritual connection to that at an identity level. It's not that they're a fan of it. These two things are very, very different. Okay. But Relly took the nibble on that bait, so now we're going to go in that direction. Let's see.
In your opinion. Because you're identifying as the entity that is a fan of something.
Well, yeah.
You understand when you...
Okay. So we recovered. So yeah, let's go back to clarifying that we're simply adding another bullet point onto this spectrum to better understand where otherkin would fall on like validity of identity or importance of identity on that spectrum. Okay, let's try to focus there. Let's not equivocate these two things at any kind of logical or nuts and bolts level, because we probably shouldn't. You can equivocate them in terms of like how much validity you give to the identity or how important you think it is, but let's not like apples and orange them the way that Hugh just wanted to. Let's not compare them to each other.
Identify with, you understand when people are otherkin, they don't literally say that they are a deer, right?
Doesn't it have to do with their spirit? I'll look it up. Here I go, looking up more niche nonsense. Let's see. No, they do. Some otherkin believe their identity derives from reincarnation, transspecies dysphoria of the soul, ancestry, or metaphor. I think metaphor is the only part that gives ground where Relly is assuming that it here. And then it says others attribute it to unusual psychology and do not hold spiritual beliefs on the subject. So none of these though are like they're a fan of the creature. Besides the metaphor thing. Like the metaphor thing is the only thing that comes close to that. So I'm not sure. Based on the Wikipedia search, I don't know if I'm giving ground to this.
You understand when you identify with, you understand when people are otherkin, they don't literally say that they are a deer, right?
Yeah, so they're not literally that thing, but
they aren't saying that I literally am a deer. I have the anatomy of a deer. They identify with the aspects or the idea of a deer.
Well, beyond that, they feel it sounds like they feel a deep connection to that thing, not just like they share aspects, but like I think it's deeper than the way that he's explaining it here, if I'm being honest. Kind of like cross-dressing versus transgender. I'm not commenting on that. I don't know.
In the same way, I don't think I don't think someone who like saying like identifies as a woman, like, oh, I 100% have a woman's body, 100%. I identify with that, and ideally I would like that. I'm sorry. You bring it back to the reason why I brought it to otherkin instead of bringing it to gender is because I think there are hierarchies of identification when it comes to whether or not like.
So Hugh is just missing the point of this entire thing. Hugh is missing what we talked about, where we're on a spectrum and we're describing different items on that spectrum and how they compare to each other. So Hugh just missed the entire reason that Relly is bringing up these points. That explains why he's confused, why he's trying to make direct comparisons between these things. So Hugh is messing up here.
For instance, the accessibility for somebody to be able to live their life autonomously outside of it. So like if somebody I'm actually curious, if anybody were to say that they're a fan of anything, do you think that I am morally obligated to respect them to be able to say that they're like a Batman fan? Do you think I'm morally obligated to do that?
Morally, I would say like if you say, well, no, you know you're a fake fan, you're probably just a dick. But also,
what if I just simply don't right? So my whole point is like at some point identification of a given entity becomes so vacuous in day-to-day's life, people's day-to-day life, meaning that it matters and manifests so little in people's like well-being that I just don't think I have a moral obligation to continue with it. So I'm saying that.
Although I would say, I don't know a lot of other kin people, but I would imagine that probably taints a lot of their interactions with people. Although a random person off the street that has no idea that that's what's going on in their head or in their soul, if that's what you believe about it, because I don't want to invalidate you. If they didn't know that, maybe they don't treat them differently. But the moment they start talking to them and this person is appealing to these ideas that they have the spirit of a wolf or these things, maybe that is seriously coloring the way that they're interacting with people though. So I'm not sure. I think you were closer when you said that like the validity that you assign to people's different identities personally from your own perspective is what this spectrum is. But to then make a parallel to like how they're treated in the real world, I'm not sure if your spectrum aligns with that necessarily. Because I would say that like, I wouldn't put it like that.
Like to bring it over to your example,
I mean, it is still less than race and gender for sure, but yeah.
Gender absolutely could get to a point where in which it's so fucking meaningless inside of society that I don't even have to recognize it because it could be the same as saying I'm a fan of Batman. It is so right.
Yes, but you recognizing it is what we're asking. Like, if I told you I was a fan of Batman, why would you reject that? Just, you would reject that because you say, who cares? I don't give a fuck that you're a Batman fan. What does being a Batman fan mean anything nowadays? Nobody gives a fuck what you're a fan of. Let me tell you that right now. And because nobody gives a fuck, I'm not fucking identifying you as a Batman. I'm not playing in your fucking fantasy. I don't give a fuck that you identify as a Batman fan. I'm not down with it. You're not a Batman fan. That's different. That's very, very different. That's very, very different than just saying it doesn't matter very much. If it doesn't, there's a difference between saying it doesn't matter very much and I'm going to reject that identification that you have given yourself, right? And we're asking why you would reject the identification. And I think that it might be worthwhile for Hugh to focus on that here, because if Relly is allowed to get away with this framing, we're going to move away from that. And I really think that's the question that we want to focus on here. We really want to focus on that, right? The problem is not like that these people can identify as things that you think are unimportant, like race or gender or this or that. Like, it's you rejecting their self-identification as that thing and then asking you why you are rejecting that, why you're choosing to do that.
Do you agree with that?
Okay, so, yeah. Well, okay, from your perspective, some if I'm getting it right. If I'm getting it right, I know where you're coming from. So it seems like your idea is if there is like no real harm that can come out of misidentifying, it's not a very important identity. It's not something that has lots of practical implications. Then there is no real moral weight to it.
Yeah, well,
yes.
there is not very much.
There's not going to be a moral weight on like accepting or rejecting that identity, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Well, let's try to be specific because we have a problem with what he's doing and not necessarily like what the level we're talking about.
Moral prescription that would be necessary to be able to compel somebody to do it. Yeah.
Okay. If I'm arguing more,
it would let's be specific. Compel a person to validate that identity, that expression, right? It's the validation that we want to probably focus on here, in my opinion.
I'm worrying about it's like valid.
Right. So wait. By this argument, every single like thing is valid. Like when it comes to your emotions and yourself.
No. So what we're doing is like, for example, like someone will say, "Oh, the person, again, it's like, I'll agree with Rachel, we'll say Dolezal, right? Oh, she was impersonating black people, right? She was like a fake black person. Like, so they're not even, there's no, the issue there isn't even necessarily the moral one, is that they're saying explicitly she is not that. She is invalid, right?
Wait.
It sounds like you're saying you just don't care.
Also, at Godfried says, even in this society where people are getting treated differently, would that necessarily mean that people wouldn't have gender identities at all? I think you mean to say even in this society where people are not being treated differently, right? In the gender abolished society that Ahrelevant has put forward here, in that society, would that necessarily mean that people wouldn't have gender identities at all? No. It just means that people don't care. It's not something that you get discriminated on or something that people really care about, right? Like if you told me you were from, let's say that I had two people in front of me. One says that they're from Finland. The other person says that they're from Norway. I can't even name where those countries are on a map. I'll be real with you. I can't. I don't care. I have no racist beliefs about either of these people. I have no preconceived notions about either of these people. It makes absolutely no difference to me whether you identify as Finnish or Swedish. It makes none. It doesn't impact the way I treat you, the way I think about you at all. And that's the situation that he's saying. Now, is there still a difference between being a Swedish person and being a Finnish person? Yes, by definition, there is. And can you identify as one or the other? Yes, you could. Even if it doesn't impact the way that people treat you, right? And so I think that's why we would still have the identities, even if the identities don't have any social weight in how people treat you. The identities can still exist, even if it doesn't matter. Like blood type. Blood type in some cultures is important, and people will treat you differently because of it. In America, it doesn't matter at all. I've never had anybody care about what my blood type is. Now, there are blood types, and different people have different blood types, and they can identify with their blood types, or they can make up stuff about their blood types that they believe in. But at the end of the day, people in America don't give a fuck what your blood type is. It doesn't really matter. Outside of a medical context, it's unimportant, even if it is an identifying factor that everybody has. So the idea is that gender would be like that. It would be something that doesn't hold any social weight, even if it is something you could identify as one way or the other. But in my opinion, if we got to that point, then sex would be far more important than gender, and more people would focus on sex than gender. But I guess gender could still exist. Like you could look like a biological woman and present as a woman and take on the pronouns of a woman and whatever. But yeah, it's an interesting society to think about hypothetically. But yeah, that's to answer your question there. Yeah, let's do this.
I mean, I don't. Well, yeah, I'm not trying to make the. Yeah, I correct. I would say that, like in general, that I don't consider these things to be very real and rigid boxes. I mean, these are very arbitrary boxes, especially when we talk about race.
Okay, I'm going. I don't think they're. Yeah, they're arbitrary. I wish they were more arbitrary, but people definitely use them to discriminate against people. I'm gonna run an ad break. The way that you don't get ads is you stop being a fucking freeloader and subscribe. It's only $5, as Invader V would say. I'm gonna run that while I go to drink real quick. All right, let's continue the review before those people get back.
Like, what makes a black person black, right? So I'm not going to make the hard claim that, like, there is no reality where in which somebody can have a different definition of race than me that Rachel Dolezal can fit into, for sure. I'm just talking about whether or not we are morally compelled to recognize Rachel Dolezal as black or what have you, and I just don't think we have to be. However, I would make the prescription that we are morally compelled to recognize the gender with which trans people identify as.
This is a good clarification from him. So we're morally obligated identify or to validate the identity of these people were not to these people. Although I would say, is being an asshole immoral? I don't know. You tell me, philosophy people. Because maybe you're not being immoral, but you're certainly being an asshole. And in my opinion, I think moral people tend not to be assholes. That's just like, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's a separate discussion, but I think you're an asshole if you just deny people their identity all the time. In my honest opinion, he does that a lot. Very difficult sitting through his stream without getting bored for one reason. For what one reason? What do y'all think's keeping Ahrelevant from being a better than a 5 or a 6 in this debate? When I hear people talk about gender or race abolition, I see them as treating these attributes as arbitrary, as eye color or something. Yeah, and I don't think that they are. The weird thing is that Booksmart's example was not in a world where there was no difference between the two Scandinavian countries. He personally just doesn't appreciate that difference. Yeah, I'm saying if you live in Booksmart's world, if Booksmart's lives in I'm saying from my world, from my perspective, yeah, I have no difference between these two things. So I'm just trying to give you... You fucking nitpicking pieces of shit, dude. I swear to God. It is slightly different from a world where nobody appreciates or acknowledges the difference. It is, but you're a pedantic fuck. Depends on it. It could be, because the point was to draw a picture for people. The point is not to make these one-to-one parallels. Depends on if you're doing good with your assholery. That seems like a slippery slope to badness, but okay. I don't think they are either. It just sounds like that's what they're striving for when they say abolition. Okay.
On the basis of that exact same sliding scale as I previously mentioned, I think on the scale from transgender, right, gender more specifically, and being trans in regards to gender, to I'm a fan of the Mets, I think identifying with a race is way, way closer to the Mets than it is gender. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. Meaning that, like,
I will give points to Relly here. You were doing a very good job of making that initial point much more clear to him. The spectrum thing that we kind of picked up on at the very beginning. Yeah, so that's good. That's good. Good clarification from Relly here.
It's very close to getting to, hey, I want to identify as black. Dude, you're just, all that means to me is you're a fan of, like, The Flash. That's all that means to me. That doesn't matter.
So do you think the gender thing, so again, so as you said before, in a society which doesn't care about gender at all, then you wouldn't really care about the whole gender dynamic.
Correct.
It's
go ahead.
Okay, so carry on. So if the people, okay, so even though we can agree race may not have race may not, let's say, completely limit your actions, right? Or a white person, like, they can do anything he wants, even if they're not black. So sure, but if there's harm, right, caused by denying it, we see that that's a reason to not deny it.
Oh, so yeah, for sure. So I would say potentially, yeah, for sure. Like if I have reason to believe something,
right, or a white person, like, they can do anything he wants, even if they're not black. So sure, but if there's harm, right, caused by denying it, we see that that's a reason to not deny it.
Oh,
so
yeah, for sure. So I would say potentially, yeah, for sure.
He's paving the way. Oh, I hope this lands. So he's trying to establish that, okay, well, let's say that the identification working in a positive way, well, let's set that aside, not talk about that for a second, but let's say that the denial of that person's identification causes harm. And I feel like, this isn't responding to what Relly is saying with the spectrum thing. So a bit of minus points there for Hugh, but this may be a strategic thing where if we can get some ground here, this may be better for his overall argument rather than working with Relly on the spectrum thing.
Like if I have reason to believe somebody's, like, going to kill themselves if I don't call them black, I'll call them black. Who cares?
Oh, well, no, but my point is, I feel like this is the same reason you are in defense of, like, transgender people. It seems like it's the same thing where, like, because of the harm that's caused, not necessarily because of the category.
Well, yes, correct. That's exactly correct. I understand that. So, like, but there is no distinction between these. Like, no, there is, because
it's the harm caused by
right. But the harm that it causes is based on the societal situation that they are both found in.
Not necessarily. Like, if there was still dysphoria in a world where like gender was abolished, like people could still feel incredibly uncomfortable that you're rejecting what gender they choose to be, even if society itself doesn't bully them for being one way or the other. Like in this gender abolished world, if you chose not to use the right pronouns for trans people that wanted to identify as whatever gender they wanted to identify as, you're still causing harm in spite of the fact that there is no societal like things giving pressure to things being one way or the other. So no, this is actually an important thing that he was drawing here. And I like that he's limiting it to Ahrelevant's actions and decisions here. That Ahrelevant's decision to reject somebody's personal identification could cause them harm, independent of how society treats them or independent of the stereotypes associated with whatever that identification thing is. That there is harm that could be done independent of all the societal stuff simply by Relly rejecting the identification. And if that's a compelling enough reason for Relly to play along with whatever the identity of the person whatever they claim it to be, then that's actually a good direction to take this. Let's see how this goes.
Right? Again, I'll say it. A white person doing anything that's considered black they can do whatever they want. They can, like, can you name me three, like, this is typically where it gets a little bit bad faith or whatever, some shit like that, but like...
he's going to go back. He's going to go back to the society thing. I don't think he sees it. I wonder if he doesn't see that's the thing here. I wonder if he doesn't. Do you guys get what I'm talking about? Let me read the chat real quick. People call me racist when I cosplay as a black person. Oh, no. I think that even if there isn't a hard objective line to draw between races, that doesn't mean that race isn't real. In the same way, there's no objective reason why the age of all right. Would it be the same to not use gender identifiers as it would be to use the wrong ones? Are you the same person that had that nitpick problem earlier that I made fun of? Let me go ahead and check. Yes, you are. Okay. You're on like a different wavelength that I think is like not helpful or important for like the discussion that we're having. And that's why I'm roasting you. Okay. So I'm trying to be better about roasts. Okay. And I think one of the ways to be better at roast is explaining why you're receiving a roast. So I'm going to do that real quick. You're asking things that are going to derail our entire conversation or that aim to derail a lot of like what we're trying to talk about or the narrative that we're building in this conversation. And so that's why it's frustrating to read some of your chat comments because they're abstract thoughts or nitpicks about things that are not really helping us clarify anything. They're not really helping us to better understand what's going on with Relly and Hugh here. They're not really helping to better understand or explain anything relative to what we're talking about here. So that's why like the way that you're chatting kind of like makes it triggers me. That's why you're triggering me. I'll explain that. So if I'm rude to you, that's why I'm being rude to you, just so that you know, because when you ask things like this, or when you're saying these chats, you're derailing everything that I'm talking about, by doing this. So when you're asking, would it be the same to not use gender identifiers as it would to use the wrong ones? Like nobody is saying this though. So it's not important. We're going off in a completely random abstract direction that neither of the debaters are. And this is like for no purpose. Like you're just randomly choosing this. It's not anything that anybody is discussing. And I'm noticing a pattern here, so I'm just going to point it out real quick. Anywho, let's get back to the real question is, why are you triggered by what someone says in chat? Because I'm a human being. There's like 50 people chatting. How can a single person derail things? Because I give them attention. Now, I could get a lot of content out of roasting them and getting attention that way. But I'm trying to get better at helping people improve. And that's one of the things. It's like, maybe this person goes to a bunch of chats. Maybe they came from Vosh's chat room before they came to mine and they were banned there because they said something funky. Then they can kind of start to piece together why it is that they go into chat rooms and they're treated rudely or poorly, or they're treated poorly in Discords or in other arguments or in real life. They could start to recognize a pattern in what they're doing that's just not productive, right? So that's why, because part of this channel is not so much about helping these debaters here, right? It's partially to dissect what they're doing so that it can maybe help you guys at home. And so if I see somebody in chat who has a pattern that I'm able to see within 4 chat messages in my chat, then maybe it's helpful to point that out to that person on top of a roast or in lieu of a roast, right? So that's why we do that here. And it does derail it, but I hope that I only have to say it once, and that if they continue doing it, I time them out, or I just be mean to them, and they have they have no excuse because they know why that's happening to them.
I just want to. Can you name me 3 things that are black things to do that a white person would want to do? Yeah, this is kind of.
No.
Sorry, go ahead.
But there's one thing a white person can't do: identify as black.
Sure.
Sure. So there you go. That's one.
Well, no. But then, my whole meme is like the reason why you would want to identify with anything is because there is a. You find that there is a preference with that identification, correct? There is something about that new identification, right? And so what I'm asking
maybe you identify with that quote unquote experience. Maybe you identify with that experience so much that you want to say, "Hey, I am with this. I am part of it."
Okay, what do you identify with that experience that you can't identify with it outside of it? Because a lot of the things that are intrinsic to the black experience that you might
Now we loop back to the very beginning of this conversation.
Identify with is probably a lot of it can be identified with if you're white or what have you, unless we're talking about like a black passing white person who like we're talking about the black passing white orphan or whatever and shit like that. Of which like of course, but like in 99, my whole meme is 99% of the time the individual that wants to identify as black or what have you darkens their fucking skin, curls their hair up, speaks in a specific way that's just ends up being racist. That's all it is. It's like you could have done all of that shit as you were white, but in fact, I would say it makes it more like more racist. The fact that they're just like, hey, you know what? I'm black to do this. Like you didn't have to be black to do this. It comes a lot off, especially. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking too much for black people, but for me as a black person, it feels a lot like people are like, hey, I'm going to do crime, so I'm going to identify as like black people. You could have done that as when you were white.
Okay. Hi. Really misses the point here. It's not about what you can do, but in what spaces you can feel acceptance. Well, to be fair to Relly, that's not a point that Hugh has made at all, right? The only thing that Hugh has given to respond to Relly's question here thus far has been the identification, the self-identification as the race itself as one of the things, right? So to be fair to Relly here, you could say he's missing the point, but Hugh has not made this point super clear. Unless I'm incorrect, if I miss something, definitely let me know, Leo Kaiser. But from my perspective, looking at the board, remember we talked about there's different chess boards. I haven't seen Hugh make anything clear beyond that one example that he just gave. And if anything, that's more of a meme than it is like related to this like different scenarios where you feel comfortable thing that you're mentioning. Remember that all of the things related to like country club stuff or feeling comfortable in an environment, these are things that I said, right? Like these are things on my game board. That's how I would have played it because I think that makes for a stronger argument. So that's how I would have done it. But that's not at all how Hugh is playing the game at the moment. And that's not necessarily what, as per your comment, it's not what Relly is focused on, right? It may be what you and I are as the chat and as the streamer reviewer right now, but it's certainly not what either of these two people have been focused on. Fair enough. Okay. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything. Because if he did say something about that, about environments and about being uncomfortable, I totally missed it because I totally didn't hear it. With this questioning of a unique Black experience, could we not look at how people need to specify that someone is a white rapper? The presumption being the default expectation is that a rapper is Black or at least not white. You certainly could. That could be another one that you could give, for sure. And that builds off of what Leo Kaiser and I have pointed out with the different environments and how you could feel comfortable in different environments, right? Like perhaps at some point, if you become... Oh, this is going to get yikers. If you are an African American studies professor and you have indulged like more than half of your life in the study of the plight of the African American people, and you feel that you are getting constantly discriminated against despite all of that work simply because you're white, and you transition to being Black, like and you identify with that culture and that history and the plight of those people and of that identity, like, I don't know if there's really a problem with that. And I would understand that as like reasoning that somebody would give me. Not necessarily like, but I'm at a level where I wouldn't question it if somebody came up to me and they were like, hey, you know Kim Jong over there? Yeah, what about Kim Jong? You know that Kim Jong's not even Korean. He just like, he was raised white. He's like a white dude. He got this surgery to make his eyes look like that. And he chemically treats his hair and then dyes it black. And he does all, like, if somebody told me all that, it's not like I'm going to treat Kim Jong like he's white or anything. Okay, well, he identifies as Korean. I don't know. I don't really care why he's doing that. Like, if that's what he wants to do and that's what he's comfortable doing, I'll identify him. I don't care. Like, it's no hair off my back that he acts that way or he chooses to identify that way. But then again, I'm not Korean. Like, but I'm also like a white dude. So like, if somebody wanted to identify as white, if somebody wanted to take like my identification, I don't feel too bad about it either, but I'm the majority. So it could be that my majority opinion is clouding my beliefs here, and that Relly's opinion as a minority, as a black person, is like, is impacting the way that he's thinking about things here. That could very well be the case. And it could be something I just simply can't understand. Booksmarts, you the real MVP. Love your content. Thanks, brother. But you can be a part of a culture without being a certain race. Yeah, you could. You most certainly could. But I don't think there's any like real reason that I'm seeing that's problematic with then identifying as like the race necessarily. It's just like a made up thing. Who cares? Like, there are people that don't look like a race that are the race, right? And there are people that get benefits of being a race without being that race. Like, Spanish people look white. I'm just going to go out there and say it. Hey, you know, I'll do it. I'll fucking, you know, I'll make the hot take. Spanish people look white. If there was a Spanish person in this country, in America, that didn't, that spoke perfect English, nobody would be able to tell that they were Spanish, you know? So like, there are different people that can get the benefits of these different races and stuff, because a lot of it's down to clockability. I don't know, bro. I'm starting to get a little bit tired of this.
Or like, hey, I like hip hop. I'm gonna identify as black. You could have done that when you were white. Like, and you would have received no negative societal repercussion. But this is completely disanalogous from trans people. If I, as a man, right now want to go and wear a dress, I'm fucked.
Do you think the role of an oppressor taking up the race of a race they oppressed be a problem? Okay. I don't think they're mentioning that at all in this conversation. Let me say that first. Secondly, for me personally, no, I don't care. For me personally, I don't personally care. I would care if that person personally did it. But when we say things like the role of an oppressor taking up the race of a race they oppressed, I think we mean in terms of like history and stuff. Like, if a white person decides to be a black person, independent of other factors or variables. Now, in my opinion, it matters more to me what that individual decided to do. If you're an individual that shit on black culture for all of your life, was incredibly racist, joined the KKK, were a Christian extremist, and preached about the evils of the N-word, and you wanted to send them across the overseas, and then you randomly decided that you were going to become black to help bolster your opinions and to encourage other black people to fall on board with you, that they're inferior and that they're this and that they're that, and then you use yourself as a heel for your political means, I would have a problem with that. I would have a problem with that. And it's not because you were historically a white oppressor or you had a history of being the oppressor. It's because you chose to be the oppressor. You were born, you had a bunch of choices you could make, and you made the choice to oppress other people in your lifetime. And then on top of that, you made the choice to identify as the very people that you oppressed. I would have a problem with that, right? If you went to like, apartheid Africa and you wanted to like commandeer a movement of African people that wanted to do something like I could see problems here, right? I could see there being problems, but you would need to be an oppressor in your own right, not historically, not on like, well, the races used to fight this way and the races do, like, I don't know. And maybe that's my white culture coming through where like I don't think that white people should be blamed for slavery and shit like that. But if you had slaves like in your lifetime and you're still benefiting from that and you actively engage in the oppression of black people nowadays, like that's making up a pretty good case for like why you shouldn't be able to transition and stuff or why we should be uncomfortable with that. But that's just my personal thing. I think you would need to have done that in your lifetime. And that's where I would see there being a problem, to answer your question. Anywho, let's go ahead and continue here. Zap.exe says, so this is just a question about your belief on this matter. You wouldn't revoke the racial identity of a black person doing this, the same thing you described, right? Is there a difference here? So you're asking me like if a black person decided to like if a black person was like a black supremacist and thought that like white people were inferior, evil cockroaches and a scourge upon the earth that needed to be eradicated and that whiteness needed to be erased, and then that black person all of a sudden identified as white and tried to encourage other white people to exterminate themselves or stop breeding and to give all their land to black, yeah, I would have a problem with that. That's for sure. I'm not racist insofar as like treating them differently because the deck has flopped. Like, no, if you chose to oppress white people as a black person throughout your entire life and then you wanted to transition to being a white person, yeah, I would personally have a problem with that for sure. You Cuban energy, Pepe. Let's get away from this topic. I actually meant the other way around. Like if a black person was a white supremacist. Well, that has nothing to do with any of this. What do you mean? So you're saying if a black person was a white supremacist and they chose to become a white person, I would probably be okay with that. Actually, it would make more sense to me that that person would want to identify as white if they were born as black and they thought they were an inferior race. That would make sense to me. I wouldn't have a problem with their transition, but I would have a problem with their idea that like white people are superior to black people. And I would feel uneasy about the fact that they made the decision to transition based on that. That'd be like if a trans woman said that like, my entire reason for becoming a woman is because men are stupid, filthy fucking animals. They are subhuman trash. They're fucking stupid. They're genetically inferior. And I want to become a woman because of that. I'm not living with these fucking Neanderthals. I don't even want to be associated with them. Like, yeah, then I would probably be uncomfortable with that person's transition and stuff. Barring any other kind of like dysphoria that's coming from anything else, yeah, I would probably be uncomfortable with it. Would I still play along with it? Unfortunately, I would have to. Yeah, I'm not going to be the dick. In all of these cases, like, I'm not going to say that the person who is white passing and looks white and chooses to be white is like not white. And I wouldn't think that the black person who made themselves black is not black, but I would still have a problem with the decisions that they made and their general ideology. But what the fuck? It's a weird scenario. Like, we're getting into the weeds of weirdness here, but like, yeah, that's where I would put it. This is what some trans women actually believe. Then I would have a problem with those trans women. I'm gonna be real with you. And if that's solely the reason for transitioning, yeah, I might feel really uncomfortable about that. Now, that doesn't mean I reject their identity and I stop calling them by their chosen pronouns and shit, because I feel like that's a separate thing. But like, would it make me uncomfortable? Yeah, it would. It would make me incredibly uncomfortable. But that's more so because like at a person level, I think that kind of bigotry is uncomfortable. And I'm uncomfortable with that level of bigotry. It just compounds the discomfort for me that you're making these kinds of life decisions based on like an incredibly bigoted worldview, right? Like, but at the end of the day, it's because of the bigoted worldview. It's not because of the decisions that you made in terms of transitioning or whatever. I hope that makes sense. It's an interesting question. Anyway, we're getting distracted. Sorry. This is the kind of derailing I'm okay with, though, because it's related to what we're talking about. It's not like, you know, what we were getting with some other people earlier.
It's like, good luck, 07, fucking to that shit. I'm going to get so much fucking shit online, so much shit from people inside of my family, IRL. But if I'm a white person listening to hip-hop, that's just every fucking white person or whatever, right? Name any black activity, you're a white person. You're either better off for it or you're exactly the same. So I don't think that, like... I just don't consider these things to be the same situation. Maybe in the future, when we balance the gender scales a little bit better, sure. But like as it stands right now, nah, no shot.
Well, no. So again, so to be clear, I understand you're saying they're not different, and the implications of both are very, very different. One clearly has way worse implications in terms of the harm it can cause and the importance they have in our society. I do not disagree with you on any of those points.
Yeah.
But again, so it seems like, and you maybe, and I get you're not doing this, but a lot of people will make sorry, man. Because again, so if it's not valid, I don't have to respect it, and I can just make fun of you for it because you're just being a dipshit LARPer, right? Who's trying to like trying to quote unquote wear our oppression or whatever it's called. This is something Turfs will say, and also something what people said about Dolezal.
I'm not gonna talk about wearing like oppression. That's not really something I feel like I'm getting at.
Oh no. So
yeah, be careful with that projection onto Relly, because he's not going to let you just get away with it. He's going to point out that I have a difference of opinion from that. That's not what I'm saying at all.
I said you're not doing it, but I'm saying,
okay, sorry.
People say
Thanks, AAD Ninja. I'm happy you fast forwarded. I hope you enjoy the vlog.
Because of the quote unquote you have no reason to do this. They'll then say, oh, it's not valid, therefore I'm free to read.
Booksmarts, isn't what Relly is saying a little weird? If you haven't watched this entire thing, Tony, yes. Well, like, wouldn't we be uncomfortable if we told a trans woman, quote, hey, I wish we lived in a society where you could comfortably be a man wearing dresses? Clearly, I'm uncomfortable with that, okay? I've been clear that I'm uncomfortable with that. I don't like his entire idea about the gender abolition thing. Like, we have fundamental disagreements about that, but I'm trying not to make that, like, the focal point of this. I tried to be very clear about that in the very beginning and then kind of transition off of it because I don't want to be a broken record.
Ridicule you about it because you are in the wrong now.
Yeah, I wouldn't ridicule people about it. I just would say that, like, I don't have to respect somebody's transracialism. Because that white kid or whatever the fuck could have done whatever the fuck they wanted to do while being white and shit like that. And I don't think that I don't think it doesn't meet my threshold for having a threshold for having a moral obligation to do so, in my opinion.
But then why choose to do the opposite then? You're not morally obligated to. All right. I'm starting to Vosh it, dude. I'm starting to develop some Voshism, dude. Vosh said I had DGG brain rot. I have VGG brain rot, dude. I think we need a supererogatory here. You don't have to. You are not morally obligated to. But I would prefer that you do. I think it would be nice if you did. Like, you're not morally obligated to identify their thing. But I would prefer that you did. Would we not say that we would prefer that you do that even if you think it's unimportant or you're not morally obligated? The same way, if somebody says they're an anime fan, why the fuck would you say they're not an anime fan? Well, because being an anime fan actually has no impact on how you would live your life and everyday life. So, you know, I don't think I should be morally obligated to have to play along with this person's self-identification is a weeb. You know, I don't think that's important. On a scale of things, I think, you know, gender and these other things that I'm morally obligated to do are over here, but this way over here, so I'm just not going to respect it. Like, okay. I would agree with that, but can we not like why then choose the opposite though? That's what I'm saying. Like, you seem to arbitrarily be rejecting that person's identity though, and you're just rejecting it because you think it's less important. But just because it's less important doesn't mean you reject it, right? Like, if I told you I was somebody who had big feet, or I was, you know, like, I feel like, why would you reject this self-identification thing? I just don't understand. I like this accent. I don't. I just call that moral obligation, but I don't believe in supererogatory action, so I'm never coming around on this. Well, we were talking about brain rot. Maybe you got some DGG brain rot, Brown. I think supererogatory actions are probably important. To like wholesale say, I don't believe in supererogatory actions is kind of a dumb thing to say in my opinion. This is like if we had scientific laws and scientific theories and you said, I don't believe in fucking theories because they're not laws. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you should still have some supererogatory things that you believe in. They're just things that don't meet a threshold for you to have obligations. Like, there are still preferences that you're going to have for people's behavior, though. So I'm not sure that that's like a very smart thing to say. All of your other chats have been dope, but I just think that's maybe a position that's not super great. Like you should probably keep the door open for some supererogatory actions. Don't just wholesale reject it because Steven said it's a stupid thing to believe in. If that's the reason you're doing it. If you have another reason, I'd rethink it. Any chance we'll get Hugh and or Irrelevant on? Maybe some debate tutoring. We could if they want to, but yeah, we could if they want to. Nobody ever comes on, so nobody ever reaches out to me.
In 99% of cases, I feel like it's just white people that want to like watch too many hip hop music videos and then want to be black, and it's like I just don't care.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it, Bobo Stalker. I hope you're never mind. I'm not going to say that. Thank you for stalking my page and giving me that subscription. I highly appreciate it. He was going to DM you, beware. Yeah, well, he was going to have to get Relly on too. There we go. That's how I'm going to gatekeep you. Hugh, if you can get Relly to come on at the same time, I'll do it. But if you can't, I won't. Because I know that you can't do that. There we go. Just put an arbitrary restriction on it that makes it not happen, and then it's like, poof, I didn't say no. Oh, shit. The issue with supererogatory morals is that morality is based on actions, whether you do or do not choose to do something, so every action has a negative moral rate to its opposite. Sure, but there can be supererogatory things that you just don't really care about. People aren't machines, dude. There is gray. Probably shouldn't have used that word on second thought. Yeah, probably shouldn't have, dude.
Okay, so the problem. So I think, and again, it's one issue where we're kind of focusing on.
Wait, I said a word that's homophobic in the UK. What did I say? What did I say? Twat? What did I say? What's a UK word? I don't even know any UK words. Must have been an accident. Poof. Poof is a fucking onomatopoeia. Oh, these fucking Europeans, dude. I swear to God. Now you've made me racist. Look what you've done. Look what you've done. You've made me fucking racist. Now I'm talking shit on Europeans. But God damn it, you and your fucking ruining of the English language. Holy shit. I'm happy we commandeered that shit from the British, dude. Holy fuck. We got to take this language in the right direction. Made you racist? Feels weird, man. Yeah, he is, dude. He's compelling me. He's compelling me towards racism. Racist and homophobe. Yeah, I'm continentalist, dude. I think certain continents are... Oh, I believe in continentalist philosophy, dude. Oh, shit. And putting all Europeans into one bucket? If I did, there would be no more Europe. Y'all would fight till there's not any of you left. Europeans just fight over everything, dude. Y'all bicker. That's your history. Your history is a bickering and bitching.
But to be clear, this can apply to
any
race.
Yeah, I know. An issue is whenever everybody talks about race, it's always like white versus black, not really encompassing every group. This is going to include like white people to Asian people to black people, whatever, right? Native American people to Asian people.
Because I feel like there's like a underlying thing where it's like, oh, a lot of these people who are doing it are just kind of misguided and they're trying to get away from maybe some racist bullshit. Does it feel like there might be something underlying it?
Well, I mean, some people might do that. I mean, that's a possibility.
No, sure, but I guess so. That's a common, what do you call it?
The retort to it.
Reference. Yeah, we're saying like, oh, it's just racist white people.
Well, so, technically, that was what Relia implied throughout this whole talk, right? Like, Relly, I know he's downplaying it now, and it's maybe not what he wants his argument to be, but he has presented numerous times that he thinks that the trans race thing just comes down to people wanting to live racist caricatures of black people. So, he was going to let him off the hook here, but I pick up what you're putting down, Hugh. Like, I get where you're coming from, even if he's not going to play along with it. Like, yeah, I see where you're coming from.
I think we just disagree, because we already agree that there's a certain level where in which you don't have to have a moral obligation to respect somebody's gender, is not their gender identity. Well, of course, there could be, like, potentially later down the line. But...
Yeah, but, like... I should be very clear. You don't really care about any identification inherently. You just care about it in regards to societal implications.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody works this way. If I definitively if I definitively prove to anyone and everyone that your identification or other people's identification mean absolutely nothing to them, why the fuck nobody would be morally obligated to do anything? Because if somebody said, "Hey, I'm a car," and I said, "No, you're not," they would go, whatever. And they just move on with their day. And they wouldn't care. So there would be no moral obligation to do so, because there would generate no negative utility whatsoever. So yeah, of course. The only reason why I care about this shit is because it generates positive utility, prevents people from killing themselves or harming themselves, and allows people the autonomy to live their lives the way that they want to. That's the only reason why. And I don't see very many people that need to be black, but I see a lot of people that need to identify with certain gender expressions or self-identifications when it comes to gender. And
All right, I'm going to take a rain check. I think that's how you use that word. How long have I been streaming? Almost 4 hours. I'm starting to get tired of this. I'm gonna be real with you. I see people in the chat like Mr. Poopy Butthole or whatever talking about this consequentialist shit and whatever. I don't care about any of your philosophy nonsense. If that's really the soundbite that you're waiting for me to hit up, like, I'm gonna opt out because I just don't. I think we've seen what we're gonna see out of this conversation, and I'm kind of over it. I'm kind of bored. Not gonna lie to you. I'm kind of bored. I think we should take a break at the very least. Well, the best part is towards the end when Hugh starts trembling and whimpering. I don't care. I'll be real with you. I don't care at all. I don't care. I really don't. I've seen Hugh get his ass kicked numerous times in debates, and so I don't need to see it happen again, to be quite honest with you. Hey, focus. Hey, focus on me. Yeah. Pull back. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'm tired. I'm getting tired. I don't know how much longer I can continue doing this. He was whining in VC. You got to placate him later? No. Placate him later? No. I'm not going to. I promised them that I would review it. I've reviewed it. Not everybody gets a full review, particularly when they're boring and loopy. And this is boring and loopy at this point. So I don't want to continue doing this. I'm gonna be real with you. This one ain't the one for me, Chief. Racist booksmarts. What did I do this racist? What do you... Oh, okay. I was scrolled up to the top. My bad. I was racist earlier. You should learn some basic philosophuckery. You're willing to learn other non-philosophy words that are more obscure. The thing is, I'm not going to say this. I'm going to hold back on it, Dylan. Dylan, you're trying to get some positions out of me that I'm not willing to share with people, so I'm not going to say anything, dude. I'm not going to say a damn thing. You know what you done? You made me tired. Book, roughly 70% of your viewer count are Hugh fans using your stream as a pit stop. I doubt that. I doubt we're even over like 150 people. How many people are watching right now? Let me check. Let me see. Let's see. We have, it's taking 10.5 years to load. Give me a minute for these insights. It's still loading. Holy shit. 114. Yeah. So why are you saying 200? My thing says 114. So yeah, it's very interesting. I don't think anybody cares from DGG, quite frankly. I think it's Hugh and his girlfriend and maybe two people from the Destiny Discord. Not gonna lie, I don't think I watch Booksmarts for Hugh, though it is funny watching Hugh get roasted. Yeah, I don't think we did a ton of roasting of Hugh today. Book, everything I did for a reason. I believe you, bro. Well, you're like the Joker. Stop hiding your power level. I like hiding a power level. I think that's fun. Like, I shouldn't continue on that topic. Yeah, I think it's kind of fun. Fuck off. Yeah, I'm going to wrap it up. That's it for today. Remember, if you want to hire me, if you think that this was helpful, if you want input on your own arguments, or you want help writing your papers or editing them or tutoring in any of your subjects in school, or do you just need advice? You want something close to like the Ask Booksmart segment that we had at the beginning of the stream. !work. You can request to work with me. We have a Notion document there that explains what it's like to do a session with me, what you would need to bring, what it costs. You can go there and then reach out to my Discord or email, which are both located in that Notion document. So you can do that. The plan for today after the stream is to timestamp the YouTube VOD while writing a post on the Reddit for an AMA. I'm not going to tell you why I'm doing the AMA. If you watched the VOD yesterday, you'll have an indication as to why I need to do an AMA on the subreddit, but alas, I'll post that on there, and then you guys can post whatever, and I'll respond to it, and then we will farm a certain kind of cash crop. Okay. And as soon as that's done, I'm going to start packing up because tomorrow I head back to the United States yet again. I know I keep moving back and forth quite a bit. The dates didn't line up with finding a new place in Mexico. So here's what I'm doing. I'm going to look for a place to rent in California, even if it's super expensive. And I'm just really, really, really going to try to make more money with streaming and hope that it makes up the difference. I appreciate all of your guys' support, whether it's through subs or donos or bits or Patreon, whatever. Do any of that. When I get back into the office, I have a bunch of documents and whiteboards with information on the Patreon rework. I know I've been saying that's coming for a while. It's very difficult to pick like what the tier rewards should be. And I think at this point I am overthinking it. I've spent way too much time in the background thinking and like trying to piece out like what the Patreon is going to look like. And I just need to pick something so those people actually get something for their money. And I actually fix like a lot of the incorrect things that it says right now that you get as rewards. So, I'm going to do that as soon as I get back. And the other thing that I have ready is a bunch of videos that I recorded to do an explanation of what it's like to go over the border. And given that I'm probably not going to be back in Mexico for a little while, I'll finish that up. Maybe I'll shoot some stuff outside as the sun sets. I live right by the beach, so that'll be fun. And then, look forward to that. That may be a Patreon exclusive video that only you guys will get. So look forward to that as a reward on the Patreon, available to, I would imagine, anybody from subscriber level and higher could probably view that. So look forward to that. I want to do more vlogs on there as a kind of like Patreon exclusive thing that may or may not get released onto the YouTube. There is actually a video on there that is Patreon exclusive of me helping Relly with some of giving him some advice. So if you've never seen me talk to Relly on his stream about giving him advice, there is a Patreon exclusive video on there, if you didn't know, of me doing that very thing. So if you want exclusive Booksmarts content, Patreon is the place to go. We also have all the notes from everything ranging from the Trump speech that I did, where I went through the entire thing and color coded it according to like what is most to least yikers in terms of incitements to violence and riling up that crowd, all the way to the notes that I took during the Destiny versus Wolf review. So if you want access to any of those note-taking documents, behind the scenes information, the notes that I have written in front of me, anything like that, you can get all of that on the Patreon at present. And there will be more stuff coming out there soon, so be on the lookout for that. A Travel Smart show would bang. Here's a cool thing. We're not closing this up immediately. I kind of want to talk to you guys for a little bit. First time catching Bookie live, and as soon as I join, he's leaving. Well, there you go. So like I said, we probably won't close it up immediately. I need to turn down the volume.
Love you, buddy.
Thanks for that. I love you too. Not safe for work, Jamie Vardy. It's been a while that you've been subscribed. That's not the first time I've seen that name. 12-month streak. Jesus Christ. Jiminy Christmas, as my mom would say. Jiminy Christmas, 12 months, bruh. A year you've been with us, Jamie Vardy. That's a lot of time. Not gonna lie. You, Amanda, and a few other people have just been with us a very, very long time. Cheese and crackers. Yeah, my mom doesn't say that, but yeah, she'll say Jiminy Christmas. Let's think. Where was I going? Oh yeah. I watched another Noah. My name is Noah, and I saw another person named Noah that did travel vlogs. And what they did was similar to me. If you didn't know, the lore behind Booksmarts is I used to live in a van. As soon as I move back across the border, I'll have to be back in the broken down van because I don't have a house in America. In the interim, while I try to find a place. And so I used to travel around the country in that van before it broke down. And so this guy did something similar. He had a Volkswagen van that he took and traveled across the country. He went to a bunch of spots from the Fallout video games and did stuff like that. He writes an entire script about all the places he's visiting, and it's very poetic and beautiful. And I've had a lot of fun time watching his videos. So yeah, I've been doing that. And that's... Somebody recommended that, and I think I could do something similar with travel vlogs and stuff. I think we could do something similar, and I want goofiness. I want to go back to being goofy. I want to be goofy with stuff. Like, if you guys have seen the video that I made where I tried to get people to come to Georgia, like even that's like a level 2 out of 10 goofy, but like I want to head in that direction. I want to make videos like that. They're really, really fun to record and shoot and make. I ordered a lavalier mic so that we have good audio outside. I ordered a GoPro mount for my helmet. My helmet's very specific. You can't just put a GoPro mount on it because a GoPro mount has a flat or a curved mount to it. But the problem is the front of my helmet on the chin section has a triangular kind of build to it. So you can't put a round or a flat thing on it. You need to make your own. And so I'm going to make my own GoPro mount, put that on the helmet, and then we'll be good to go with that. We can do moto vlogs. And yeah, as soon as I get a place in California, I'll probably move all my stuff into there and then do a little bit of a trip. Maybe we'll go up to San Francisco. Maybe we'll go to Joshua Tree since the weather's getting a little bit better. We could go to Vegas. There's tons of cool stuff that we could go and see. We could go down to LA. We could hang out with Too Mad if he's around and willing to do stuff. There's all sorts of stuff we could do. I mean, Supreme lives close to me. Supreme's only like a little bit of a drive away. We could always go and hang out with Supreme. That's like an option that's always on the table. Also, I'm really important. Now that all of us dudes are vaccinated, we can hang out and do whatever the fuck we want. So all of us live like relatively close to each other. We all live in the same area of California, so it's not that big of a deal. Destiny lives super close to me. You wouldn't believe it, but like Steven and I are like uber duper close to each other. So if Steven ever wants to do something IRL, that's why I can go and do stuff like the Trump rally with him, because he's like literally down the street from me. He can hang out. All of us, like, we have so many cool streamers. I think Denims lives close by because Denims has hung out with Supreme and all of them. Amy C3 or something, I think she lives nearby. Dylan is coming by this week, so I know Dylan and I had that negative experience on the panel, but, you know, it's not my place to say whether or not he could forgive me. You know, it's his position to choose to forgive or not. But if he wants to hang out or do anything, I'd be down to hang out with him. So lots of opportunities to hang out with other streamer people, especially now that I'm all vaccinated.
Said book fucker.
Let's see here. What's your Cash App? My Cash App? I think it should be it's $Jake, Jake, XOCHILT. So that would be Julia, Alpha, Kilo, Echo, X-Ray, Oscar, Charlie, Hotel, India, Lima, Tango. I think that's it. So $, and then that shit. If you really want to send me money. Let's see here. Boys trip. Yeah, we could do a boys trip. Tumat has like a motorcycle, a little dinky motorcycle, so we could go out and do something with Tumat too. He has a cool car. I mean, we could go out in the middle of the desert or something. Going off Mexico for good? Not for good. I'll probably return to do something else, maybe like a food trip or something.
Sam, what is this?
Thank you for that. I appreciate it, Rayer girl. Denims is in New York, lols. I don't think Denims is in New York. I think Denims lives close by to us. Does she not? She hangs out with Supreme and stuff. I'm pretty sure she lives in California. Forgive the dumb fuckery, but I have not been able to find that panel showing on YouTube. Did Dylan not upload it? I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't really track it because obviously that's not my proudest moment, but I've seen other people link it still in the Destiny Discord where they make fun of me. So I have seen it. I know the link exists. You should be able to watch it. Imagine being comfortable enough to see your friends in person in 2021. Well, I'm vaccinated, so that makes you all kinds of comfortable, you know? By the way, are those Bear Dynamics? Yeah, they are. They're the DT something Pro 80 ohm. You probably know if you recognize the headphones off the bat. I've gotten compliments for them in my Discord as well from the audiophile people, which feels good. You may not know this, but like, I don't know the technical details of headphones, but I used to be one of those people that does all the research and looks into like what headphones are the best and whatever. Like, I used to be all about that way back in the day. That's also what led me to buy they're not anywhere near me, but my QC35s, like that was a huge leap for me to spend that much money on a pair of headphones. But my God, did they make travel all the better. Just before I went on my first trip over to Asia, I read that Casey Neistat and a bunch of other people said that you absolutely need noise canceling headphones, which I didn't believe. I thought I could take my ATH M50s and bring them on the plane with me and totally be okay. No. You definitely want noise canceling headphones. So I got those QC35s and they were really nice. 770 Pro? Yeah, I think they're 770 Pros. Sadly, the one kind of brain rot I have is audiophile brain rot. That's an expensive terminal illness you have there. Last time I watched Denim, she was in New York. Are you sure? I mean, she may be visiting New York, but no, I'm pretty sure she's down in LA or Orange County. Forgive the dumb fuckery, but I have not been able to find that. Oh, I already read that. Bose's active sound canceling tech is some of the best in the business. I hear Sony has good stuff too, but they're expensive headphones, so I don't want to like trial Sony headphones just for the fuck of it. I want to wait until the other ones break, and they really haven't. I'm super duper rough on them. Why do you need noise canceling headphones? Airplanes are very loud. Airports are very loud. Trains and buses are very loud. All of that starts to get to you. And so it's very, very nice to have noise canceling headphones because you can find some center in at an audio level, right? You can center yourself and have some peace. And that's super duper valuable. Like, yeah, like if my headphones broke and you told me I had to pay double the price for them, like I had to pay like $700 to $1,000 to Thanos snap another pair into my hands while I was traveling, I probably would have taken it. I probably would have spent $1,000 just to have my headphones back. They're that valuable because it just makes a world of difference. Whether you're on a tuk-tuk in Thailand fucking zipping along, or you're waiting on a bus to cross into the border with Burma, for fucking 4 or 5 hours with a gazillion people, or you're on an airplane and it's turbulent and you have shaking and noises and people crying and sniffling their nose and the smacking sound of their finger exploring their asshole, whatever the fuck the sounds are. I don't want to hear them. I want to be in my own world. And that's my ticket to my own world. Book, would you do meditation on stream? I could, but it's incredibly boring. I don't think you guys would have a fun time with it. Let's see here. Jet engines are loud, but oh my God, they're like whisper quiet with the QCs. Yeah, they really are. They really are. And then like I find that like when your brain learns like not only that there is noise canceling, but that if you focus on the sound, everything really goes away. So the active noise canceling gets rid of most of it. But if on top of that, you turn the music up and you focus on the music, then you're golden. You absolutely don't hear a goddamn thing. It lets you shut everything out and have that mindfulness even in really, really stimulating environments. So it's really important for me when I travel. Yeah, me too. Again, I've mentioned this before. I hold out the idea that I may be neurodivergent and I just don't go and get diagnosed for it or anything. But like when I'm overstimulated, it really, really impacts me like a lot. Like there are times, and even having the multiple monitors and doing things here, I feel that I get overstimulated and I literally have to like stand in a doorway in silence with the headphones on and just like zone out to like recenter myself. So I don't know. It's super duper valuable to me to be able to take out all the stimulation and be able to like get some peace because I will go nuts. I want to see Booksmart's travel streams analyzing world conflict dispute arguments, just healing the world by analyzing one argument at a time. I'm not really a fan of headphones. That's why I like that Apple put noise cancellation in the AirPod Pros, and I was surprised when they decided to make Apple headphones, and even more surprised when they told Apple headphones are called AirPods Max. Okay. Why wouldn't you want to get diagnosed? Because I don't think I have a disorder. It doesn't cause me any problems. I don't think there's much of a reason to go in and get diagnosed unless you have a disorder. So that's my thing. Like it doesn't cause any problems in my life. I have like coping mechanisms that don't seem to be negatively impacting me. So I just don't care to. I honestly think your ability to process how you feel and recenter yourself on the fly is something appreciable. So I personally would enjoy seeing all the things that help you do that. Oh, okay. Maybe I'll talk about it more. The only thing that I know that I have is general anxiety. That's it. I was diagnosed with OCD, ADHD, and DID in high school. Well, that's a trifecta of rough. I believe meditation to be a part of that. So I was interested in how you do it is all. I literally just sit down and be quiet. Like, you guys want to do it with me? Here, we'll do it. Ugh. Whoops. I mean, there's nothing to it. You literally just sit still and be quiet. He's breathing, thank Allah. Inshallah, my brother. I find focusing on my proprioception can be a good way to get into meditation if I'm having trouble sometimes. Interesting. Did you have any insights? No, I'm just trying to chill out. Just trying to be less shaky. He's meditating. Don't be an asshole, guy. All right. What are you guys saying? What kind of mean shit are you guys cooking up in this kitchen? Let me see. This is not my angle, by the way. This is peak content, sensei. No, it's most certainly not. This is like the worst kind of content you could possibly have. That was so hard. Nice. What are you describing there? You just sit still and be quiet. I don't understand. You just breathe. I just joined in. Oh. That's a good Dr. K emote. Maybe I should watch his stream more. I don't even have him followed. I should probably follow him. When do you get to head back into the state book? That'll be tomorrow. Tomorrow in the morning, I'll head back. I need to be out of the Airbnb by noon. I figured that I'll try to leave the house by maybe 10 or 11 a.m. and then a long wait in the borderline for maybe maybe even 2.5 or 3 hours. And then I'll be through. I made a whole video explaining the process. Maybe I'll like try to have that edited tonight or something, and then I'll post it, make it available for you guys so you know what I'm doing while I'm gone. But the other thing is we have like we have 3 YouTube videos that are edited, uploaded, and ready to go. The descriptions are written out. They don't need timestamps. I literally just need to like get information to my thumbnail editor to create some thumbnails, and then we can put them out there. So there's edited videos already ready to go out. I just have to like make sure everything is done, and then you guys get all that. I don't really watch. I just support and watch YouTube. All right. When do you get... I already answered that. Okay, anywho. Let's find a place to put you guys for today. By the way, I already asked this. Sorry if you saw and then dismissed it, but is there a stream schedule? Not anymore. There was Mondays and Fridays at 1 p.m. I trialed that for about a month. It kind of tanked my viewership in a weird way. I get more viewers when I like randomly stream than when I schedule stuff. I don't know if that's like a worthwhile thing to point out. But I do make more money when I stream regularly. So there's trade-offs there. That's what's made me think like maybe I need a more structured show, kind of like the Bill Burr podcast where we have segments and I know how long it's going to take to get through everything and I just kind of Rochambeau it. But yeah, I think I need to make a content schedule so you guys know when stuff comes out. And then when the website's done, I can put that all in a calendar and you guys can just do !schedule and it'll give you guys a link to the Booksmarts website where you can see a calendar where everything is going to be posted. I think that would be pretty cool. That's crazy. Whoa, I've heard the exact opposite advice. About what? About the stream schedule thing? Yeah, me too. Believe me, everybody tells me the opposite, but it's not what I've seen with numbers. I'm not sure of the science of it, but here in India, meditate while chanting Om. It has benefits and stuff, keeps you grounded. I only know one with chants, so it feels disrespectful to do it without trying to do it. So I'll try to do it. Hold on. It's Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I think that's what it is, right? Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. It's that. And you just do that over and over again. I don't know what the right rhythm to it is supposed to be because I didn't get far enough along to like be able to lead the chants and whatever. Normally I'm going with whatever the leader is doing. But yeah, we used to do that. That sounds a lot like Nam Mô A Di Đà Phật in Vietnamese. Interesting. It's a Buddhist thing. It's from a Buddhist cult that I was in. Is it related to Amida Buddhism? It may. I don't know, dude. It's Buddhist of some sort. I was in like this Japanese Buddhist cult, and we used to do that. So yeah, we used to chant that while we would do it. Personally, I find your content something I have to chew through, so I fall behind really fast. No worries, brother. That's, if anything, it's a compliment for me. I just check if you're live on YouTube, to be honest. Come to Twitch to chat. Just me, though. Yeah. I'm not sure the science behind... okay, I already read that. But yeah, anywho, let's find a place to put you fine folks for the night. We've done over 4 hours. We've done a good stream today. We did good. I can feel good about this today. We did all right. Next stream will probably be next week because, again, I have to do this whole move to America. But you guys will be getting YouTube content in the next few days, so be on the lookout for that. Join the Discord. There may be a discussion in the Discord after stream today. Like I said, there's been a lot more people that have been going into the Discord and talking with each other in the voice chat. So if you want to do that, that's cool. Fridays after the stream, there used to be a movie club. I don't know when the movie club is going to happen this week, but it would likely be on a Friday, and they're going to do a movie club. So you could do that. But yeah, there's plenty of people to hang out with in the Discord. If you want like-minded individuals to hang out with, you can do !Discord. If you're watching this and you're a V Omega Lol D motherfucker, then what you can do is you can look at the description and click on the Discord link. If you click on the description, there's not only timestamps, but there's links to all of my socials. Click on the Discord link, join the community, and have a good time. Make sure to read the README because me and the mods are fairly strict, and you will learn very quickly that we will warn you, and then we will ban you, or I will DM you if you do not follow the rules. So keep that in mind. All right, let's see. How are we gonna raid into? Let's see. I don't know. Should we raid Destiny? Who should we raid today? Who are you guys thinking? I'll leave it up to y'all. Rage vote? Okay. That's 1 vote for Rage, 1 vote for Destiny. So that's it. Yeah, let's just raid Destiny. Who cares? Destiny. There you guys go. Hop in. Have fun with Destiny. He's a cool streamer. He does politics. He's a bit of an abrasive dude. His rhetoric is like so-so. He's trying to make it a point to improve it in 2021, so I'm looking forward to that. He doesn't take too kindly to the advice that I give him in person, but I understand that he does chew through it in his private time and incorporate it, thus the 2021 being the year of rhetoric. I have no doubt that that's a part of it. So have fun with him. He's cool. I'll see you guys later and have a good rest of your day. And then to everybody else in the YouTube, goodbye. Have a good time and stay frosty. Stay cool.